Hello, ladies and gentlemen and friends beyond the binary. Welcome to Step Back Tonight, episode 17 for this February 12th, 2019. Can you believe it? We made it all the way to February of 2019. Hi. Hey. How's it going? It's been a while. It's been a whole fortnight. I do a floss dance, but I'm sitting. Man, so how's everyone doing? I see we've already got, oh man, there's a whole lot of people in here. Oh god, okay. So we're getting, well, for anybody who is new to this program, this is Step Back Tonight. It's a weekly stream I do. Most weeks, I was off last week, where I hang out with Step Back fans, and I don't know, is it too much to call you fans? To people who enjoy, you know, give somebody some company for Tuesday night. I find that Tuesday is the toughest day of the week because Monday you've got maybe a little bit of optimism that this week's going to be better than the other ones, and then Tuesday you're just like, oh yeah, I've got 4 more of these, and so Tuesday, I think, is the most draining on the soul, and so, you know, I'm very happy to just be here to talk to you guys and give you guys some company while we what are we doing today? We're watching old Step Back videos. Yeah, good stuff. I see things are already picking up. Everyone's all typing some questions. But to give you guys some updates, so, yeah. I have recently, I got some, I don't know, I'm not sure what I'm allowed to announce yet on different fronts, but I do have to say, I have 2 Step Back videos planned to come out in February. I have one coming out, my hope is going to come out either on the 21st or the 22nd. And then I have a second one. I have a second one coming out. I need to, anyways. Squarespace, or sorry, not Squarespace. Skillshare reached out to me, and they really liked the response to the AIDS crisis video, and so they wanted a few more. And so they got the Mulan video, and then hopefully we're going to be getting, we got 2 in February. So, yeah, things are really cool. And I am, and so yeah, those are really great because in the last, like, little bit, it has been like, oh, Step Back starting to become, like, more and more of my salary, to the point where if I can land a couple of those and my Patreon gets a little bit stronger, I'm not too many steps away from being, like, full-time, which that's a huge decision to make. Obviously it'll take a while, and it'll be a complex conversation and interesting, but yeah, that's super crazy. I've, like, made more steps towards becoming a full-time YouTuber in the last, like, few months than I think I have in a lot of my history. And I got some questions about all sorts of stuff. So, Argos Panoptis asks, why do I hate anime? Well, that's a complicated question. I should probably, I don't know why I can't stop looking at myself. That's a little bit better. Okay. So, why do I hate anime? Well, actually, when I was a younger person, I was a younger Tristan, I actually was, and also I have to notice the girl that's been noticed, because otherwise she might turn back into the girl that hasn't been noticed, which would be sad. Anyways. Alright, so anime, I actually was kind of into it as much as, like, a Baka Gaijin could be. In, like, when I was, like, 13, when I was, like, you know, in, maybe not 13, yeah, 13, about 8th grade, when Gundam Wing was airing on the air and Dragon Ball Z and stuff was a thing. I thought I was into it back then, but then I just got older and I didn't really like it that much afterwards. And also, to go deeper into it, the stories aren't that good to me. Like, I know there's some people who swear by it and think it's amazing, but I just never saw the appeal. And then also, as I got older, like, when I found out that not only the plot's a little weird, but as someone said, it's got like there's sort of a lot of misogynistic undertones. There's a lot of kind of making excuses for what would be extremely creepy behavior. Like, it's played off as sort of humorous that characters are like attracted to children, or like very obviously pushing the boundaries of what women are, like, like invading women's spaces and sexual harassment and things like that. And that's like played off as like a joke, which I don't think is super cool. And on top of that, I found out, this is the thing that I think really made me like really not be a fan of anime anymore, was, well, maybe never consider going back. I've tried getting back into anime, and I've tried watching the things that everyone was telling me to watch. So I watched the one with the giant skinless toddlers who eat people, which I think got a little... That show's a different issue. But I watched the one where they get the book that lets them kill people. That one was interesting. They both speak to, I think, what is like a really big issue with anime shows, is that they are built around a concept. Like Attack on Titans, for example, was a show that was built around wanting to show off that sort of compressed air Spider-Man type combat, where they like use these like powered cables or whatever to like move around tall buildings and take them out. And I was like, okay, that's like the thing that they want. That's a thing that's in the show. And with Death Note, it's like, the Death Note story, the plot. But either way, but the cat and mouse game is really the Death Note story. Anyways, between those two, what happens is they get like, and this happens a lot in Japanese media, and I'm not sure what it is, they get some sort of gimmick that makes the show run. And then they just keep hitting that one note, and they don't explore a whole lot else. And the episode, I remember distinctly the episode where I got off Attack on Titan, which was, there was an episode in which there was, they left the big walled city to go do something. I can't remember what the point of it was. And they were like on their horseback in the middle of a field, and then they got attacked by a Titan. And I was like, oh, they don't have tall buildings to like, zip around on. Like, maybe this will be an interesting new situation that they'll have to, adapt to new circumstances. And it'll be like, if you were to see like Spider-Man fight a villain in Saskatchewan, like what would they have to do? And then they're like, wait, look, there's a redwood forest over there, so we can still have our stupid we can still have our cable fight. Don't worry, everybody. You can still see your cable fight that everybody wants to see for some reason. And that was like, oh, okay, so they are literally like going to like throw in, it's like a bad GM or something. Like, they're just going to throw in things that make no sense in order to keep the gimmick alive. And the other one with Death Note was when they realized that their story was getting was kind of getting boring, and so they just decided to throw in a second. Like, this is like the first person to ever be like the Kira who's like, using the book to kill people on such a scale, and then they just add a second one who happens to be like a model, and she's like obsessed with the guy, and that's like creepy and shit. But it's just like, oh, this is just happening now. Like, they're just like, no preemptive plot. It's just like, we're going to throw a new thing in here for some reason. And it's like, it's showing that they both needed to hammer on some sort of gimmick that just gets old. Now, like, there are really good anime things that have existed. Like as a kid, I think that actually it doesn't hold up to age, but the old Pokemon TV show was pretty fun. I remember liking that a lot as a kid. But movies like Akira's a pretty sweet movie, and Ghost in the Shell's a pretty good movie. I seem to recall liking something called Pat Labor, but I don't really remember much of it anymore because I was kind of a kid. So, like, I feel like movies and stuff tend to be better. But either way, the fact that there's the trope issues, there's the sort of one note issues, and then I found out also recently that I read this amazing article that showed that in Japan, and this part's going to make you like so grossed out. So Japan has, not surprisingly, extremely weak and anemic enforcement of their child pornography laws. Like, extremely weak. And any time in Japanese parliament, when they try to update these laws to make them stronger and to, reduce the rates of human trafficking and, stop child pornography, the anime has lobbyists in Japan. The anime lobbyists go and push for politicians to not do this. And so the anime lobbyists are keeping Japanese child pornography laws weak so that they can like just I don't know. I think that part's messed up. And so yeah, I think that it has interesting artistic aspects, but I just can't get into them. And every time someone's like trying to get me to sell me on them, a lot of the people today are like, a lot of the people who I talk to today who are really into anime but are adults have kind of come around to like it's stupid. I know it's stupid, but I like it anyway, which is like, I'm not really a person who is really into things that are like, I know it's dumb, but I watch it anyway. Like, that's just not like I know there's people who find that kind of stuff funny, but it's not really my jam. So I've been told a lot to watch Cowboy Bebop. That's one I might actually give a shot to, but cool glasses. Oh yeah. Let's that's something that happened also in the last 2 weeks is raise a glass, raise a toast. These poor guys broke. I was just sitting on my computer working on Saturday morning, and pop, they're just done. I had these glasses for like something like 7 years. And they broke. These are my backup pair. And my backup pair, they're fine. I don't like the look of them. I'm glad that you like the look of them. But I honestly don't. And Kelly, when she saw the new glasses, was like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. And so I had to go this week, on Monday, I had to go to the optometrist. I had to go to the optometrist to basically find out that my eyes had not changed at all in the last decade. And then that was $100. And then $200 and something later, I have a new pair of glasses that are coming on Thursday or Friday. So, and they look pretty similar to those ones. So, we're getting there. I'll be back to having normal, dorky, hipster glasses before long. Kind of goes. I got a haircut on the weekend too, and I got myself a bit of a faux hawk, so it'll fit the whole entourage. what else did I have? Oh, and also last week I missed Step Back Tonight because I went and saw Come From Away, which was really cool. I was pretty excited to see it. The musical ended up being really, really good. I went to... How do I explain this? In grad school, I studied 9/11, and 9/11's like my PhD dissertation was going to be on how 9/11 shaped American culture, and specifically how Americans conceived of their own past through like the gauge of the angle, like how does a history book before and after 9/11 got written. And so ever since I started doing grad school, as soon as I had heard about Come From Away, I knew I had to see it. And it took me way too many years to finally get to see it when it came to Toronto. And I saw it, and it was really, really good. It's a real pressure cooker of a play. I don't know if there's anybody who's like, I'm sure there's like, I can probably watch my numbers go down as I start talking about musical theater, but plays are normally like long. Like we just watched The Sound of Music over the weekend. That movie is 3 hours long, and that's pretty close to a typical musical. Musicals have gotten a bit shorter now. They're maybe about two 1 hour acts with like a half hour like intermission. Maybe not half hour, like 15-minute, 20-minute intermission. So usually, like when you go out to the theater, you're out for like a good few hours. But this play was a 1-act play that was only about 100 minutes long. It's only about maybe, I don't know, like an hour and 40 minutes tops. And also, the play really didn't have too many of what are called in the musical business button moments. And button moments are when you finish a song in a musical and they intentionally pause the action, or they do something that doesn't require a whole lot of paying attention because they know that there's going to be like applause. But Come From Away had several songs where once the song finished, the story just keeps going, which means there's no time to pause. There's like a few moments. Like they have a few really big numbers they stop for applause. But for the most part, the story just kind of keeps going even after the song's over and everyone doesn't really clap. And so you have this very singular experience, because usually when you're in a play, when you're watching a play, those button moments, those moments of applause are sort of moments where you exit the story for a bit, and sometimes it means that you are more aware that you are enjoying a communal experience, and you are sort of interacting with the play in a way that sort of reduces the tension of what's going on. Come From Away didn't have that many of those, and so what the result of those two things are, the no intermission and the sort of frantic pace of the play, is that you wind up being just like really sucked into the story of it. You get like one complete story in a short amount of time, and you're just here for the whole thing. And so more than like a lot of other musicals, I walked away feeling like I had like a really personal experience. And that was unique. And I think that was really cool to see. So that's like my experience with I was never in musical theater, but I was very close to doing it. I love musical theater, and I had a vocal coach when I was a younger person, and as she actually suggested that I go to university for musical theater, and that I like do musical theater professionally. But I was still like, I was only like 19, 20 at the time, but I was really into it. I was really enjoying it, and I was doing pretty well at the competitions that I was going to. But I would still have had to learn how to act and how to dance and all that kind of stuff. And so she's like, if you learned a lot of these skills, you'd probably be pretty good at this thing. And, being a rotund individual like myself, there's the whole angle of being the character actor, which is like, there's a lot of roles for people who don't look like a handsome actor folk. And so I could have really fit that well. And I think that I chose to go into history instead because music is fun, but it's always been a very core part of my life. Just I don't think it was ready for my career. I had to do something a lot more stable like YouTube, All right. Let's see. You guys have really racked up some questions. We're going to answer some questions, and then we're going to watch some of my old videos, and we'll commentary on those and everything like that. So first question we have here is, what will happen to China when Xi Jinping dies? I wish I knew more about China, to be honest. So the one thing, so Xi Jinping has sort of been notorious in recent Chinese politics because he's been becoming more centralized of a figure. He's becoming more and more of like a like he's been rerouting, like often in the past. China is such a huge country, it's kind of hard to centralize power, but Xi Jinping has been doing that quite a bit. On top of that, he has been riding the fact that China's been having a massive increase in its wealth. Like it's been like the adjusted for inflation, the average Chinese person has seen rapid economic growth at all levels of the spectrum. So you have insanely rich Chinese billionaires who are getting richer all the time. But also at the same time, you have like poor and working class Chinese people who are also experiencing an increase in their life. Like their standard of living have been going up as well. And so there's a lot of support for Xi Jinping. I think one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of unrest in China is because kind of similar to like the Middle East, where yeah, they don't have a whole lot of civil rights. Their freedom of expression is locked down, and all these nasty things. But things are kind of good, so they don't care. And that seems to be like the story of what's going on in China right now. If Xi Jinping dies, I mean, it'll be a huge deal. The Chinese will have a huge event for it. What that means for whoever is the successor to the leadership of China, that's a good question. I mean, Xi Jinping probably won't even die in office. He's kind of setting himself up as a dictator, but aside from like a couple other leaders, Chinese leaders don't necessarily rule for life. China does have elections, and they do have like leadership races for the leader of the Communist Party and stuff. And so now Xi Jinping has no chance of losing, but it could be that he just retires. Like that is perfectly possible. But who knows? We'll see where... it depends upon where the leadership of the next thing goes, though, because there could be... Let's double down on more of this, like, you know, getting drunk on capitalism and being the world's factory. But China goes through periods of looking out and looking inward, and I don't want to, like, be historically deterministic, but they could go through another isolationist period, I guess. I doubt it, but because I think that everyone is pretty aware in China that what they're doing right now is pretty good for them. So, yeah, Xi Jinping could stay indefinitely, but he doesn't necessarily have to. Like, if he decides he's old and doesn't want to be leader anymore, he could do that. What are common questions for anarchists you receive from liberals, Demsocks, Socksdems, or about anarchism? All right, some geek. I can try to. The most common questions that anarchists get are the first one, especially from liberals, will be that basically more just an accusation that it is either some like that you have to kind of overcome the concept that it is a group of like people who just want to destroy things, and be like the idea that everybody is that all anarchists are tabby, basically, the ContraPoints character. But the first thing that when you find out, like, first of all, you have to convey to them that anarchists are mostly like a mix of hippies and punks. They're punks that are also vegans who you know, start free stores and give away like vegan stew on the street corner rather than like break things and attack people. They do that too, but you know, most of their daily lives are spent like having book fairs and you know, fighting each other over tiny bits of doctrine. Then oftentimes there's just like there's a lot of liberals will say, oh, like you'll either go between your standard arguments in defense of capitalism or your standard arguments in defense of the state, which are like, you know, we've grown up very highly indoctrinated thinking that there are no alternatives to the state. We very much like capitalism. We can imagine the end of the world before we can imagine the end of a state. Really, only anarchists and communists are people who legitimately believe in the end of the state. And anarcho-communists are both. So you really have to like explain that the state is not a thing that has always existed, that if anything, the state is a phase of human existence that we have gone through for a comparatively smart, for a comparatively small part of our overall existence, and that we can, even with high technology, have a life where we organize ourselves more akin to principles that came before agriculture, for the most part, where we live in smaller communities where everybody is familiar with each other at some degree, and decisions are made democratically in smaller groups, and that you do not have to delegate massive amounts of power to a small amount of people in order to make society function. Usually, there's a lot of soc dems and dem socs will probably stop there. We'll probably get off the train with you there too, and that's where you are. That's usually a brick wall at that point, because when you try to propose like what's the alternative, then you they don't like when you say, well, there's going to be different answers in different areas and you have to think about different things, and also there's tons of writing about it, and there's like a whole rainbow of black and X flags, and so there's a lot of different ideas, and by that point they just assume you're instead of explaining that there are lots of answers and lots of things you can think of, they assume that you are just wrong and you don't have an answer, and therefore you are wrong, you're dumb, and you're naive, and therefore they just kind of dismiss you at that point. And that's basically where a lot of people, that's basically at the point where you get the most extreme on that list, the democratic socialists, pretty much off the thing. When you try to talk about alternatives to the state, and how, if you think about it, like, we have so many political ideologies that are just based around assuming that the state needs to exist, that we haven't even entertained the concept of what other ways we could organize humanity that don't require a single organization that has monopoly on the use of force. Because we've been so laser focused on that as the way of organizing ourselves. And it's like we haven't even entertained further things. And honestly, a lot of anarchists don't really have an answer to what their perfect world would be like, because they, you know, are dealing with the issues of today, not the issues of like 1,000 years from now. So instead, they're just like, oh, how can we make things better? How can we, like, you know, get rid of these oppressive systems that are ruling over us now? But I feel like anarchists tend to get an unfair burden placed upon them. Like, they tend to have this sort of assumption that if they haven't solved all of the problems of humanity, Like, if you haven't solved all the problems of humanity and also have an exact step-by-step road plan towards utopia that every country can follow with a laminated, perfect plan, then you're not worth listening to, because obviously every other ideology has that already down. So you got to figure it out for yourself. You got to do that. And it's like, oh, that seems a little much, but okay. Yeah. So those are the criticisms that usually come up. Sometimes you get people who actually like talk to you in good faith, and they're like, "Oh, like what? This is a thing." It's typically stuff you find in the FAQ, like, what is anarchism? What is like the burden of proof? And people who are more philosophically curious sort of come out and discuss that. And people have explored all sorts of really cool ideas. I've honestly. I like a lot of possibilities. Like, even, there's, the main thing, the thing that makes anarchists, like, separate from, like, communists is that anarchists just don't, like, communists and Marxists specifically, Marxists and Marxist-Leninists are under the impression that we need to make a state to defeat capitalism before we transition to a communist society, which is inherently stateless and classless. That you need one because you're not going to be able to make a grassroots, stateless military that will fight off the attacks of capitalist society. I don't necessarily think. I think that's a very 20th century way of thinking about what to do for the future. But that is definitely the division between anarchists and what would be called like Marxist-Leninists at this point. And yeah, I think that anarchists, even just having the moral North Star of trying to reduce the amount of power of the state and realizing that in the realm of left-wing politics, we need to be wary about the overreach of authoritarian power in the state, is a good voice to have in the room. Because when anarchists aren't in the room during leftist revolutions, you end up with some very horrible stuff going down. Okay. Comrade Jeb. Did you hear about that PR China is making an anime about Karl Marx's life? Yes. Yeah, I have seen it. It is, probably not going to watch it, but it's very memeable. I have seen a lot of very amusing pictures just made from the trailer alone. So I imagine that there's going to be a lot of left, as the left wing of the world is having a little bit of a moment, that definitely that is going to be some prime meme material. Make more Viking videos, especially one on the Icelandic sagas. That's not so much a question as it is a demand for me to make videos. Listen, I'm making videos as fast as I can. So I feel like sometimes I'm almost out of control with the subjects I have anymore. Either it's a collaboration that is already in progress, or I am beholden to my patrons for stretch goals and things like that. So the next time that I think I'm going to be able to make a video under my own, like, that I choose completely, that isn't already chosen, is like April at the earliest. But that'd be kind of fun. I don't really know too much about Vikings, so it'd be fun to go into Viking world. I would just be interested in finding out what the story is. I've been very aware recently that the key to successful YouTubing is to be able to tell a compelling story. And maybe something like an Eric the Red story or a Leif Erikson story, like those kinds of things might be interesting to tell. But I think that those have also been told by a lot of people. The whole step back style that you're looking at history sideways is like, which, that's a slogan I haven't said in a while. That I would need to look at something that is sort of considered familiar to a lot of people and find that way, that vujade, that looking at things that people have heard about a million times, but then looking at it in a way that makes their entire head go, huh? that like looking at the familiar in an unfamiliar way, and I think that that would be the Viking video I need to make, and I don't exactly know what that would be at the moment. But, you know, if somebody pitches a pretty good, compelling narrative to that, I'd be open. Are we going to continue the story? Yes. I think that the story rolling thing went really well, and I think that that's the thing I'll continue. So I have the story saved. Wait, I actually might have deleted. We might have to start the story over again because I think the story got a little funky. But we will do that again, and then we will, once I get it down. Because the thing is that I basically did it wrong the last time I did it, but now I've done it a whole lot more. And so now that I have the system down, I'll start it over, and we will tell a story, and it will continue it will continue every time we do those. When I rotate through different things I do for shows. So I think going forward, we will have a story that will be really fun and solid. Actually, you know what? I don't think I did delete it. I think I do have it. I think it's on a different Excel file. So don't worry. It's there. It's been done. It's there. It's not gone. I was mistaken. I misremembered. So we will see what happens. Which for anybody who wasn't there for that, at the last stream I did this sort of I played this sort of storytelling game where you use dice rolls to basically tell a plot line, a plot story, and I had people chosen it, and it was very much like it's very much the situation where it was turning very quickly to this conceptual science fiction piece where AOC and Gritty travel from the future to go back to the 2008 election to prevent something from happening, and runs into a couple, what would be today leftist YouTubers who at this point were youngins who, well, not youngins, I think ContraPoints, she was like, in 2008 she would have been like 19 or 20. But two left-wing YouTubers who are still in their problematic phase are trying to stop her, and then it kind of turns into a buddy comedy, and who knows what happens after that. That's where we stopped. And there's also robot leftists as well that I don't really understand where that was going, but, you know, there you go. Christy Winters said that she thinks non-corporate PACs are good because they mean candidates don't have to waste time raising nickel and dime donations from individuals. What do you say to that? All right. First of all, how do you put limits on that? Does Christy Winters literally think that to make a political action committee, like if you don't have laws against those, I mean, first of all, it's just a thing that she's saying so that she can attack Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, because I know that Christy Winters probably wants, like, you know, the most right-wing Democrat that she can get her hands on, those two have used the fact that they're not taking PAC money as a selling point, and so I imagine that Christy Winters is trying to defend PACs. But the thing is about PACs is that they can represent a lot of different interests. They can represent corporate interests. They can represent unions. They can represent all sorts of things. This was sort of if you guys I don't know if this channel's still around, but around the time of the Citizens United decision, there was a guy who had a channel called Concordance or something like that. He blocked me, or he did something when I when he did a video about rape on college campuses that basically was saying that the reason why rape happens on college campuses is because women drink too much. And he said this like super misogynistic thing, and I said, hey, that's really shitty of you to say that, and I got banned. But yeah. So anyways, political action committees. So the idea behind them is that you can raise money and do ads and raise money for candidates that is outside of typical campaign finance laws, because you're not giving money directly to candidate A. You are raising money for blah PAC and basically saying, hey, isn't it like Citizens for an American America? is just running an ad that just happens to say how great this candidate is. And anyways, Concordance, when the Citizens United thing went down, he made the argument like, well, it's not just corporations, it's unions and things like that. But the problem is that in America, the problem isn't necessarily PACs. PACs are kind of like a symptom of a problem. They're not the problem themselves. PACs exist because essentially two things. One, corporations that want to basically buy elections wanted a way to get around campaign finance laws and donate to these organizations, or more likely set up these organizations. So not only will they be able to give money to whatever candidates they want, but on top of that, because they are not beholden to the same campaign finance laws, they don't have to disclose who's donating, so they can just obscure who they're donating to. On top of that, the other side of it is that they try to raise money for particular causes, and they try to promote candidates who fit those causes, because the main problem is that America is a fucking payola system when it comes to elections. The entire issue is that elections are decided mostly by who spends the most money. So I really don't want to be too mean to Christy Winters, because we've had pretty good interactions, but I know that this super whenever it comes to Democratic politics, her right-wing side just comes out in a really ugly way. And when it comes to PACs, PACs to me, for even PACs for the good causes, to me feel like the same thing as how people are using GoFundMe to pay for medical bills and funerals and things like that. And it's the problem isn't the fact that GoFundMe exists. The fact is that GoFundMe needs to exist. And we shouldn't really live in a context where something like GoFundMe needs to exist. And that's my problem. Because the issue is that candidates... Well, first of all, candidates are using PACs to basically skirt around campaign finance laws. Planned Parenthood has a PAC. Planned Parenthood raises money also all over the place because they're a freaking NGO. Or not? Are they an NGO? They're non-profit anyway. And they can donate to candidates. They're just limited in how much they can donate because of campaign finance laws. So they start PACs in order to get around them. The problem is you gotta get around that. You have to realize that campaign finance laws are the problem. The fact that every election since 2010 has been ballooning in how much money goes into it is the problem. And honestly, yeah. I mean, that's and yeah, it's basically until you get rid of PACs, you're not going to be able to get rid of the Koch brothers' hold on America. You're not going to be able to stop people like Bloomberg and Schultz from tipping the scales in their balance until PACs are gone. The reason why campaign finance restrictions exist are so that candidates can't get overflowed with money. I honestly think that Americans should find a way to implement something a little bit more like the British system, where you drop the writ, and as soon as the writ is dropped, before the writ is dropped, it is illegal to run ads. And on election day, it is also illegal to run ads. And so I would think that if you limited how long an election can be, and on top of that, you had strict amounts, like you had a maximum amount per election that you could donate to political candidates before you are committing a crime, that is good. Because then it means that, and I think that number should be relatively low. Like, in my opinion, the fact that the Koch brothers can pony up, even if it was $10,000, the fact that the Koch brothers can donate $10,000 while your average Joe could only pack up about 20, that's gross. That shouldn't happen. I think that, honestly, donations to campaigns and that kind of stuff, I think that that's more problematic. And I know that there's like an anti-market solution, which would be that that broadcasters in the United States would be required to give airtimes to political candidates. Or, you know, maybe just like with other types of ads, just not like allow political advertising. Instead, you have to, like, you know, get into the debates and get into something a little bit more substantive, but I know that that's not really, that's a pipe dream. But limiting the amount of time and the amount of money that can go into advertising for campaigns, I think would be a really good thing to do. I don't think that campaigns should be as big as they are. And that they should be extremely limited by who can give the money, because right now, a candidate that has 2 supporters that have $10 billion can basically outspend no matter how big a grassroots campaign it is. And I think that's depressing. I think that that's a serious, until this problem is managed, you cannot call any country that practices it a real democracy. It is an oligarchy, and that is bad. Michael Kirshner, I saw that Cold War set photo. Real rad. Yeah. Oh man. Okay. So I don't know how much stuff I can announce about this. I'm just going to go by what's public. But yesterday I got to go to the Kings and Generals office. So I got to go to the office building where they make Kings and Generals videos. And I got to see like their studios and stuff like that. And they are praising... I was reading the chat while talking. That's always a bad sign. They are preparing to make a new channel called The Cold War. I'm going to link, actually, the video they've already made on that channel. It's public, so I know that... that I can say stuff about that. Which is... Let me just... Yeah, I'll link you this video. No, I'll find the actual channel. But yeah, so the people, the guys who make Kings and Generals are making a new channel, and that is that. The link I just put in chat, and where the picture of me on that set was the set that they're going to be filming it. And I got to see it, and I got to take my picture on the set, and it was really cool. I mean, I don't know what they want me to say or not to say, but I can say that they have asked me to be involved with the channel in a capacity, with the Cold War channel. That's why they invited me down to that's why they invited me down to the studio to come see stuff. I mean, I'm also friends with the 2 guys who run the channel, but yeah, why not? And so I got that offer, and I thought it was really cool. And also, they're letting me shoot some stuff there for step back videos and such. So overall, really exciting stuff. I'm really excited to see how this all goes down. And the set is super, super cool. Like, the picture that Norland took of me is like, it doesn't give as much credence to like how cool that set is. Like, the papers on the desk are all in Cyrillic. There's like the radio on the desk is a Soviet radio. There's just all sorts of like they must have gone on eBay and stuff and bought all sorts of like old Soviet things and like 50s stuff, and they made that set look so cool. And I'm really excited to see what the videos look like on it. Yeah. You know what? It's starting soon, so I'm not gonna. It's starting in like March, I think, or something like that. So, I don't think it's too out of line to say that to say what they want me to do. They want me to write for it. They want me to write scripts for the Cold War series. They want me to basically anything that deals with the United States or the West. I'm going to be writing the scripts for those. I won't say what they are because I don't want to give away, spoilers for future videos. But I am writing the America side of the Cold War series. And also I'm gonna go find a link to the tweet so that people know what I'm talking about. I just realized that not all of you are on Twitter all the time, or if you're even more sane at all. So I'm just going to give you guys the link in the chat. Yeah. So, I love, Ilkin and Norlin are the two guys who run Kings and Generals, and they are super, super cool. I'm a really big fan of them. And like the stuff they make is like really, really beautiful, and they've like offered to give me advice on how to up my animation game and all sorts of stuff like that. So I'm really happy to be developing a relationship with them. And if I am doing this, I'm going to be probably meeting with them almost every 1 or 2 weeks. So yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really excited to do that. I came home yesterday so happy when they talked to me about it. Yeah. They're planning. They plan for it to go for a long time too. So it's gonna be really fun. By non-corporate, do you mean grassroots run? I think I might have missed something on there. Thoughts on Xenophon? Have you heard of his stuff? Xenophon? The fact that I can't pronounce his name. I mean, also the fact, no, Argos, I am sorry, I've never heard of Xenophon. Is that like a phone you use to call aliens? Caesar Archer, you're awesome, Tristan. Well, thank you, Caesar. I appreciate that. All right, Jonathan Simmons. Oh, Jonathan Sims. It's a mess like Japanese culture as a whole. Oh man, a little bit. Misogyny, yeah. Sirloin of Ice, yeah. This is all the stuff about animes. If you go to full-time YouTuber, would Thursday countdown streams come back? If I was a full-time YouTuber, I would totally do Thursday countdown streams. I don't know when that will be. It's not tomorrow, that's for sure. I could not justifiably drop this unless I got to drop like my day job, unless I got to the point where it was like at least I was making like at least half of my salary from everything else. But honestly, that decision is a decision a lot of creatives run into, and that would have to be a decision I make with my wife, and depending upon where, we are in life and all that kind of stuff. So it's not a decision I can make at the moment. But if I was a full-time YouTuber and I did not have a day job that I went to, yes, I would definitely be doing the Thursday countdown streams. That's the only reason I stopped. Do you like Cyberpunk? I love Cyberpunk. I played in a Powered by the Apocalypse role-playing game campaign for a few months where it was a Cyberpunk series, and I played as this sort of biohacker. This like, she was like this Australian biohacker who lived in cyberpunk world, and she was based on this this transhumanist biohacker that I really that I've been like, following up on. I've been following on for a while, called named Left Anonym, and I named my character Anonym, and she was, she was cool. And so I made a video, I made a character that was like really obsessed with cybernetics, but also didn't have a ton of money, and so she like was always like installing cyborg parts on herself and like doing a lot of self-surgery, and also was like the person that you went to if you needed like backroom illegal cybernetic parts installed for discount prices, which was pretty fun. Also, she was like very like she was asexual and neurodivergent, and had like was like on the autism spectrum, so I tried to play her like this like really unique person, and also that she had lots of scars from all of the surgery she did, and she's like covered it up with tattoos, so she was like almost like unable to tell what race she was because of all the tattoos she had. I thought it was a really cool character concept, and then that campaign ended and I got a little sad, but yeah, love Cyberpunk, and I really wish that I was playing that game still, but oh well. Let's move on. I don't want to talk. I imagine you guys don't super care about me talking about a role-playing game I played like a year ago. How much painkiller does it take to get rid of back pain of anime? Oh my, okay. I can't answer that question, Jeb. How is the weather? Well, Sirloin of Ice, the weather is super shitty here. Canada, well, at least the part of Canada that I live in, Toronto, got a huge snowstorm today. Basically, all of the schools, all the schools had a snow day today. Even my office basically had a snow day. Like the 3 people who showed up to the office went home early. So yeah. It's like it was snowing all day, and now it's freezing rain, and then they expect it to turn back into snow overnight. So I imagine tomorrow morning is also going to be just real fun to commute to work. Comrade Jeb, can we have a minute of silence for our fallen artifact? Oh, for the glasses. Yeah. That snowstorm's now hitting New England. Fun. Hey, it's Chrisiosity. Nice to see you in here. Not surprised anime lobbyists in Japan want to keep... Yeah, they fear the consumers' law change. All right, yeah. I'm hitting on questions that are like related to a conversation that's already passed. Thoughts on the ethics investigation on Trudeau? Super interesting. The SNC Lavaland stuff. So I honestly, for someone who deals a lot with it at my work, I don't know the details per se all that much. I don't think anyone does. That's the problem. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of signs that the PMO, which is like our word for like the Prime Minister's office, has been doing something not good when it comes to messing around with freaking the legal system and basically letting a corporation get away with a crime. So that's not good. But who knows? Who knows what'll come out of that? There's... All right. Why do you think... All right. Why do you want to kill white people and destroy Western civilization? Well, Argos, that's a very good question. Those are things that I believe. Sure. It's funny. I think my favorite video, my favorite thing that like discusses that is definitely the ContraPoints video, where she does this, where like, Natalie does this breakdown of like what Western civilization is. And it's just interesting that like the people who are like, let's defend Western civilization, it's like, okay, let's break this down a little bit. So like like Western civilization, like which part of Western civilization? This is like a pretty broad category because it means white people. But like even like the white people are so varied in different philosophies and different periods. Like they're not even like cogent over like the people who are like, let's defend Western civilization, referring to philosophy and all that stuff, can't even keep their philosophers straight. And they're like philosophers that disagree with each other. And not to mention the like people of like, let's defend like, you know, the legacy of ancient Greece. And it's like, let's defend the legacy of ancient Greece. Now I wonder, like, I'm just trying to remember my history here, but like, who was it that preserved all of the ancient Greek writing? Because, like, I recall that Western Europe, like the West, spent several centuries finding all of that ancient Greek writing and burning and destroying it. Now, there was one part of the world that kept all of that ancient Greek philosophy and plays that these like, you know, racist white people want to hang on to. I just can't remember what is, if I remember, aren't all of the ancient Greek texts that we have today translated from Arabic? Like, Arab, like, the reason why, like, the ancient canon has been kept is because of freaking the Middle East and Muslims. Like, if anything, Western civilization like burned books and like destroyed its own history because it was heretical for ages. Like, I don't know. And also, like, the concept of the West is dumb. Like, Greek philosophy is just as like influential on like Islamic scholarship, and like the like Western countries have been influenced and been influenced by various regions of the world for the entire existence, the entire concept. I think Natalie broke this down too. The entire concept doesn't even make sense. And it just like, any. All right, 1 second. I just gotta ban an asshole. Goodbye, Mr. Revenant. I am very sorry you had to put up with that curiosity. He is gone now. Okay. So, yeah. All right. On a related note, sadly, what, if anything, do you think about the controversy Peter Koff and Angie Speaks have been embroiled in recently? I have decided to not get involved in that as much as I can. I do know that it's really shitty to, no matter how you disagree with people, like, one of the things the left has always tried to be is not terrible to people. And, like, when we are attacked by, like, the radical right, they, you know, try to destroy our personal lives. They dox, they, you know, try to get our addresses. They try to hack our accounts. Like, that's shitty shit that the right does. But then doing that to people on the left, technically, is horrible. And anybody who is, like, part of that dogpiling is just, like, you really need to, like, get your priorities in order. If you really think that, like, harassing one of the very few women of color that we have in LeftTube space off of YouTube was, like, your way of somehow getting some sort of justice for anything, like, that's, no. Like, you are wrong. You are doing internet activism wrong. As for any of the other sides of it, the things that sparked this series of harassments, I honestly, it's not a thing to me. I think that it's not a thing I know about. It's not, like, that kind of, like, drama and stuff like that. Like, that's not stuff I care to know about. It's not a thing that I want to get myself involved with. And so, in my mind, my only comment is, hey, it really sucks when you try to destroy somebody's life because you got mad at them over something that they said. Like that. That's my only answer. That's the only thing I have to contribute to it. So that's where I'm at. All right, where are we at? Are you okay? This is from Sirloin. Are you familiar with that time Dick Cheney accidentally shot someone with a shotgun? Yes, I totally am. What's it called? I was a teenager when that happened, and I remember I was also a teenager who hated George Bush, and so yeah, totally, I remember that. God damn, like the Dick Cheney is just like evil incarnate, and like he just gets away so many things. Oh man, just watch the videos already. We're getting there. Argos. We're getting there. There's okay, this is my favorite Dick Cheney thing. So Dick Cheney has had a lot of heart problems in his life. And one of the things that he's had to do, first of all, every time he has a heart attack and on Twitter somebody says like 3 Horcruxes remain, I laugh because I think that's actually really funny, even though it's evil to say. That's ghoulish as hell. But when someone said like Dick Cheney had a heart attack, 3 Horcruxes remain, I thought that was amusing. But after his last heart attack, it's awesome to see Stepbackers, best channel on YouTube. Well, thank you, Caesar. After his most recent heart attack, he had his heart replaced with he has one of those artificial hearts, and in a thing that just feels. Which Bush did you hate, HW or W? Definitely W. HW, I think HW left the presidency when I was like 3 years old, and like I got politically woke at a young age, but not that young an age. I was very much still concerned about like Barney the dinosaur when we were dealing with like HW. Yeah, so Dick Cheney has an artificial heart, which I think is where he's keeping the last Horcrux. I mean, that's what I would do. Or he's got a thing like, or he's definitely got something like, what's his name? He's got something like, do you guys remember Martin Sheen's character in the movie Spawn? Where Martin Sheen was like the villain in Spawn, and he had this device attached to his heart where if it ever stopped beating, it would set off nuclear bombs around the planet. I definitely think Dick Cheney has one of those. But he has so he has this mechanical heart, and one of the things that he has a medical alert bracelet. And on this medical alert bracelet, it's a warning to EMTs because of the way that the artificial heart functions. He technically doesn't have a pulse. And if there's nothing more perfect than Dick Cheney doesn't have a pulse because his mechanical heart doesn't do it, that is like I think the most poetically amazing thing about Dick Cheney at the moment. All right. Leonardo Alfonso, will it take an alien invasion for all of humanity to unite? You know what? Read Watchmen. That's basically the plot. Well, spoiler alert, but that's basically how that ends. Not the movie. They changed the ending for the movie, but in the comic book. All right. One question I got for anarchists. How sexy are anarchists? Well, some random geek. I think they're pretty sexy, but that's a self-serving thing. Do you think furries are woke? Sure. You know? I don't really know that much about furries, but, you know, a lot of furries are just like, you know, you do you, and they seem to be very happy with what they're doing, which to me sounds very woke. They are chasing their bliss, and they are enjoying doing it. I could not wish them any more joy. I wish that more people were like that. Nazi furries are probably not woke. Those seem like bad people, but because they're Nazis, not because they're furries. Are you still optimistic about AOC, the girl that's been noticed? Yeah. Yeah, I still am. She still is pretty cool. Also, alright, 255 wants to know, all civilization being composed of a federation of small communes. Even if you don't know how to get there, is it not accurate to say that that's the anarchist ideal world? To some, to myself as an anarchist, yes. There are anarchists who want us all to live as robots. There are anarchists who want us all to shoo technology and live in hunter-gatherer civilizations. Like there are anarchists of a lot of different stripes, and so, you know, that is definitely more of an ideal world that I would like. Question, advice for dealing with trolls on Reddit. Yes, I am a big fan of Do Not Engage. I think one of the Innuendo Studios videos said to me, or not to me, said in a video, that like it takes on average about 100 interactions with somebody to change their mind. And it would be nice to think that you will be number 100, but for the most part, you're probably going to be somewhere in the middle. And so if you are one of those wonderful souls who thinks that that can actually go and tell people about stuff, then by all means do it. But for the most part, if it's just trolls, if it's just people trying to get a rise out of you, if it's just people who are trying to make your experience of a website unpleasant, then just move on. Either if they're making things really bad, take a break from the website until things die down, or you can take my motto for Twitter for 2019, which is mute early, block often. That works really well for her. That works really well for me anyway. Chrissy's comment was something like, if you support a candidate, why wouldn't you give money to a PAC that's likely to give them money? Why don't you give the candidate money? I don't know. How is Malay Archer and Mr. Beat related to the Cold War channel? I don't know who Malay Archer is, and I as far as I know, the Cold War channel is just it's just going to be like there's like 5 of us involved with it, and like I think I'm the only one of like 2 of them are the 2 people who run Kings and Generals. One of them is me, and the other 2, I don't think I've done YouTube stuff before. One of them is like one of the people who runs Kings and General's brother. So like, I don't think Mr. Beat. I told Mr. Beat only knows about it through me. Do you support the bread tubers? Oh, this is from that Ration Revenant. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Is it bad to have a romanticized view of the 60s and 70s? Really depends upon what your romanticized view is, Logan. You've been reading Naomi Klein. Well, that's good. I actually saw her once. She did a talk in London, and when I was living in London, and it was really good. It was like in the sort of interzone after the 2016 election, but before before the inauguration. It was like in January of 2017, and I remember liking it. I remembered that I saw her and I waved and she waved back. That was cool. That's like the most interaction I had with her. What do you think of Clinton administration's choice to back Yeltsin during the 1993 Russian constitutional crisis? I don't know too much about that, but I imagine it was not good. Yeltsin was not a good was not a good leader of Russia. He was kind of an embarrassment, and I don't know what the crisis was about. So it's really not. I want to live in a robot. I want to be a robot too. I want to live in a robot commune. Thoughts on RCV? Who's RCV? Or what is RCV? What do you think about Andrew Yang's presidential run? I don't know who Andrew Yang is. So can't help you on that. All right, I've cleared out the questions. It's time. We're gonna watch old Step Back videos. Let me just get this going. First, I haven't checked on the stream in a while to see how many of you are out there. So I'll do that in a second. Then we got to get this whole thing running. Alrighty. There are 53 of you right now. That's so bananas. Okay. Where did we leave off? What was the last one we watched in the last one? Like, I want to say the last one we watched was the anarchists and the Spanish Civil War video. I think that was the last video in the last one we did. But I imagine somebody also in the chat probably knows. I am gay because I dreamed about being a girl last night. That, no. There's nothing even close to gay about that. What's it called? Being gay would be being primarily attracted towards people of the same gender as you. If, that's really the only, it's the only criteria. And that's only exclusively. If you enjoy the company of both, you would be bisexual. But being gay is about, like, sexual preference. It has nothing to do with gender identity at all. All right. Let's get this. Let's do this thing. All right. And nice. Very good. Very good. I'm working on getting the camera, getting the setup looking. If I was a smarter person, I would have done this before the stream. I'm frozen, so you know that I'm working on it. All right. Are we ready? Okay. Ta-da! All right, so the last one we watched was Building Utopia Under Fire, the anarchists of the Spanish Civil War. So let's skip the Q&A videos because they suck. Should we skip the Q&A videos? Do you guys want to see those? These are like videos I made when I hit 1,000 subscribers that are like Q&A stuff. Specifically, you release a Simpson with a dragon body. Well, I think you're fine. Let's watch some of the old Q&A videos. So back when I didn't do streams literally all the time and answered everybody's questions, I did a Q&A when I hit 1,000 subscribers, and I just did a handful of them. So let's skip the Q&A. All right. What if present Tristan disagrees with past Tristan? Oh yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So the first one let's talk about. Let's do. This is folks. All right. Let's. This is the Brexit video, because this was shortly after Brexit happened. Let's see if I've developed anything since Brexit. Q&A time, everyone. I decided to give as many questions as possible the room to breathe. So expect to see one come out about every week or so alongside your regular Step Back content. Jason Blood asked me what I think about the UK and the EU. Of course, I decided to tackle this question first, as it has already been a week since the Brexit vote, and this is as hot a take as I can muster as a historian. So, when I think of the Brexit vote, my mind goes to another referendum. Here in Canada, when I was at the tender age of 6, there was a referendum on whether Quebec, la belle province, would leave our confederation. I was a French Canadian living outside of the province, and most of us were pretty scared it might happen. It failed, but by like 5,000 votes. And when the head campaigner for the Leave campaign blamed the defeat on, quote, the ethnic vote, separatism caused quite a bitter taste in a lot of mouths. Things have been cool in the last 21 years since. What does this have to do about the Brexit? Well, just like the vote, we worried about a tanking Canadian dollar, dissolving other parts of the country, and general chaos. The only difference is Quebec said no to that. However, many people planned for what might happen if it passed, and the establishment politicians had settled on 2 major scenarios, and I could see a parallel with the UK and the EU. One school of thought was that to make it all work, both Canada and Quebec, or the UK and the EU, would make a lot of compromises and capitulations in order to make the exit as painless for both parties as possible. This could result in a Brexit that still has free migration and the European market, but nobody in Brussels, like Norway, except with Scotland and possibly Ireland on their way out.
All right, so far, I'm pretty I think I feel pretty much agree with all of these things. I do think that it's been a lot more apocalyptic than we thought, and I think I will add losing Gibraltar to the list. But let's continue.
With much, much less bargaining power. The second school of thought was that the process would be long, painful, and difficult. That the years of negotiating Quebec's leaving Confederation would be such an ordeal that public support would erode, and the mere process of separation would drive another referendum that would fail. We are already seeing...
Oh, man. Okay, so, yeah. I think that worked really well. The fact that, like, there was 2 possible scenarios. One where that a lot of compromises are made in order to make it smooth as possible, and the other was that it would be such a disaster that that will would erode and they would push for a second referendum. Those are basically 2 of the things that are currently on the table for Brexit right now. The third is what's called hard Brexit, which is just like about basically Brexit. Like Brexit is hard Brexit is like my assumption. I think Britons are getting hard Brexit, which is just going to be like, you know, Mad Max like apocalypse. That's where I think things are going for them, because they can't seem to work out a deal, and on top of that, UK is gonna have a rough 2019. But yeah, here is I'm glad somebody got the David Cameron joke. This is back when David Cameron was still Prime Minister. Yeesh.
Some major blowback from the Brexit passing, and the UK might be so sick of it that by the time it comes to put pen to paper, sentiment could call for another referendum. This is the solution I think the UK would need to keep Scotland and perhaps Ireland and Gibraltar. It also is setting a weird precedent.
You're right, I did watch this before.
Far right and semi-fascist factions are popping up everywhere.
Okay, that's something I would take back. I was a lot more guarded in my language back in 2016. Basically before the Trump election broke my brain. So, yeah, I was a lot more like Marine Le Pen, definitely semi-fascist and not like hardcore fascist.
Something I think other like-minded people need to be more vigilant about opposing and combating when it emerges. More on that when I answer the Donald Trump question. Overall, I think this was a weird confluence of factors that I sincerely hope does not reflect the British people as much as it seems. It has dark forecasts for peace and stability in Europe, and I really hope it's not just because of the farcical belief that it was people speaking Polish or observing Ramadan that put British people in economic stagnation. Goldman Sachs and other big American banks caused it. We know this, with like numbers and everything. Thanks for the...
All right. So yeah, we had watched that before. I am actually starting to remember that now. Okay, so that
was that was good. I think that. So then we did watch this one. So I think the next one to watch is how step back videos are made. I think that's where we're at. I do think that I stand by a lot of what I said in that, though.
Hey, folks, another round of questions, and
You saying something? Oh, I thought Kelly talked to me. Sorry. Yeah. So this is my next one. This is my next Q&A. This is about how step back videos are made. This will be interesting because that has changed a lot since I did this video. This is interesting. If we starve her, is to remain fault. Oh man. Anyways, this is also on my old microphone. So before I got this Blue Yeti, but also on top of that, this is the old way I used to make videos, and we can talk about how much it's changed.
I have answers. Today is going to be about Step Back, what it means, and how I bring you my South Park mix with alternate history hub face every week. Yeah!
Where was Q&A 2? We did that in the last one we watched. I remember that now. The last time we did this.
The story behind history at...
Oh man, the story behind. I remember that channel. I don't know whatever happened to that channel.
Asks, how do you make your videos? If it's already on there, how about how you developed your style? Alrighty, the anatomy of a video. The first...
Okay, let's go back and look at that one.
Behind history asks, how do you make your videos? If it's already on there, how about how you developed your style? Alrighty.
So this was the thing I used to do. Okay. So the idea section is basically no longer a thing that I need to worry about. I have way more videos to make than time to make them. And normally some sort of factors like a collaboration or a time event or something coming up will inspire what makes the video. Research, writing, and editing, that's just like script writing. That's still more or less the same. Record, animating, compile. I mean, the rest is just kind of standard.
The anatomy of a video. The first thing I do is get an idea, either by writing down when something strikes me as cool, perusing the giant idea pile I've been building since the channel started, or taking a suggestion from you, my loyal viewers. The next thing I do is try to find one or two of the big important books on the topic and get a hold of those. After putting together a quick summary, plus some poking around to find fun details, I begin to write. I write up a script that's usually between...
Yeah, that's so far we're about right. Oh, this is back when I had a MacBook. Oh, that's nice. I miss that MacBook. Hi, Mr. Krakowian.
500 and 900 words, and show it off all bright and happy to my wife. After she tears it apart and sews it back together in a form that actually makes sense, I record the audio. This process involves...
Yeah, she doesn't do that much anymore. She now trusts my... She's now more... I trust now my own writing process a lot more, and she doesn't have the time to just, like, read my scripts anymore, so I don't do that anymore. But now I've become a way stronger writer and a way better editor than I was in 2016. I will give myself that credit. I have worked at that skill to death.
Speaking into a microphone when children/large vehicles permit. Then it's just a matter of preventing the cat from jumping into my lap and meowing into the mic.
Yeah, she still does that. Oh, there she is. She's right there. So that's the same cat. That's my amazing artistic technique at work right there. So Phoebe still is the source of a lot of interruptions of my recording. So, you know. That's fun.
Persistent though, so often has to be there while I work. I then put the script into super expensive and sophisticated step-back animating software called PowerPoint, and think of a bunch of funny things from...
Yeah, I used to make these videos in PowerPoint. This is actually the default gradient background from back in the day. That's crazy. I love that.
aware. Once I have found enough of those, I slap it into a file and put it up on the internet, hoping people don't hate it. I get to be happy for about 15 seconds before I open up a project for the next video and go again. As for style, I would say it was an iterative process.
Oh man, yeah, look at that. Still iterating. Every once in a while, I still tweak the character. I haven't done it in a while. Should probably do it again soon. Should probably definitely change the hair to be more accurate, but we'll see.
I made my first 2 videos apparently while drinking, and then realized they looked far too much like Cody's work on the alternate.
What program do I use today? I use After Effects and Illustrator and Premiere.
History Hub. So I did a makeover. I try and change things from time to time and push the abilities of making stuff out of PowerPoint shapes as much as I can. Or maybe sometime I'll just learn how to draw. Gus Campbell asks, how long does it take to animate?
I think Gus Campbell still comments from time to time.
Usually the better part of a day if I do nothing but that, and the audio part is entirely complete. I will...
Whoa. Let's go back to that. So, your old style was more accurate than now. What do you mean my old style was more accurate than now? I don't know what that means. Why do you draw Kelly in a white shirt and a tan waistcoat? I don't know, honestly.
How long does it take to...
I think that was just like, typically when I did stuff like that, that was just like a thing. That was just me drawing whatever they were wearing at the time. So, you know. That's a long story. I bet Kelly was probably wearing a white shirt and she has like a brown tank top that she wears sometimes. So I imagine it was just she was wearing that.
Animate. That depends on the video. Usually the better part of a day if I do nothing but that, and the audio part is entirely complete. I will say 6 hours. Lock it.
Yeah, that is the fact that it took me 6 hours to animate a video back in the day. That is so funny. It's not even. That's oh man. 6 hours is like, you know, maybe half of it.
Asks, which channels have you collaborated with? Will you collaborate with small and new channels? Well, Locke, I have collaborated a lot. I think it makes for interesting content and allows me to stretch as a creator. Since about 80% of you now are here because of a collaboration.
Oh hey, it's the Cold War. How's it going, man? It's the actual Cold War channel. Yo, 6 hours is amazing when I was making it in PowerPoint. It is no longer the case. Nowhere close to the kind of stuff that I've seen you guys doing, that's for sure.
This should be no surprise to you. If you click on this thing I wrote about long before I decided what it was, you can see them all, and there will be many more. The smallest channel I have worked with is just under 200 subscribers. If they have a good idea, I don't much care how big the channel is.
All right, that's something I should probably... Yeah, all the animators are like 6 hours. Holy crap. The thing I just said in the thing is, pro tip for YouTubers who want to collaborate with other YouTubers. When you write to them, first of all, don't just say, hey, do you want to collab? That's not good. That is setting a bad precedent. If you come to them with an idea that you want to work on together, that is way more productive, and that would make people a lot better, a lot more likely to work out. And yeah, that's my opinion. So yeah, and also 6 hours is a dream.
Bigger channels took a chance on me when I only had a few hundred subscribers, and I'd like to pay it forward if I can. On that note, the story behind has been teasing the birth of a channel that I really want to see. So go to his channel and poke him until he gets his first video out. Paulo.
That never happened. I don't think that channel ever really stuck with it. He was just a kid, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but it's sad. I would like to see it.
Stanarevik asks, what software do you use in the making of your videos? For organizing my life?
Why doesn't Kelly like being called a nerd? I don't know, I should probably ask her. Kelly, why don't you like being called a nerd?
No, I'm cool with being called a nerd. I am a nerd.
Alright, she says she's okay with being called a nerd. I think it was like how you were afraid of your D&D.
That seemed different to me.
She says that seemed different to her.
My life organized. For research,
I still use My Life Organized religiously.
Devon Think.
Devon Think I do not, because that is Apple only.
For writing, Google Drive. For audio, Audacity.
Don't use Audacity anymore, it's now All Bot Edition.
For animating, PowerPoint. And for compiling a video,
The Adobe suite has pretty much taken that over.
VideoPad Video Editor.
Oh my god, the VideoPad video editor. That thing was so... It's pretty good for its price point, but that's so bare bones. I don't have the other thing. I have like after I got the Adobe suite, that whole patchwork of programs got changed up.
High-Waisted Pantaloons asks, how do you see your channel being different from all the other history-related?
I don't think she watches my stuff anymore, but I still see her every once in a while, like on VidCon and stuff.
Channels. What sets you apart? Thanks for asking this. I came to YouTube to make history videos because of a deep dissatisfaction with history content in general. The History Channel is... well, we all know what it is. And overall, we history content creators tend to take the easy route of focusing on warfare and generals. I wanted to make something that talks about history and does it in a way historians actually do it. So I would like to think Step Back is different because we look at all the cool things that aren't easily illustrated with maps and arrows, and touch on stuff very few people do. Xander asks,
Hey, I've done a few videos with him. He's still pretty cool. So you use an Adobe program for recording audio? Yeah, I use Adobe Audition, which is Adobe's like audio editing program.
what crazy ideas do you have that you haven't been able to execute yet, but hope to do in the future? Like, in general? I'd like to visit India or something. For the channel, I'd like to make more stuff besides videos that fills the same niche. I mentioned earlier that I've been mulling over a few book ideas.
That book idea is still on hold. Is that an arrow point in North Korea? I don't think so. I think it was just like a map. I don't think it was like an actual map of the world or anything like that.
And have some ideas for a few other projects that I'll have to say are top secret for now. Kong Ming asks, how do you usually decide a topic? This is difficult. It has changed over the months I've been doing Step Back. I originally just had a bunch of cool topics I always wanted to see a good video explainer on, but could never find. Now, on top of my own random ideas, I also go by seeing what people like or dislike through the success of videos already out. If the divination, chicken bones, star signs, and numerology all work out, I get to work.
What a snarky bastard I was. Yeah. So now, then I ballooned out of control, and I got to a point where I was making like really like I had this really extreme list for categorizing and prioritizing video ideas that honestly wasn't working super great. And so now I kind of am just developing an instinct for it. I'm not sure how well that's working, but that is basically how I decide what videos to go forward with. Like the next two videos I have making, one is a Patreon stretch goal because it's one that a lot of people have been asking me to do. And so I made a Patreon stretch goal and we passed the stretch goal, so now I'm making it. The second one is a video, and it's a highly requested video in a very popular series that I run, and it's a collaboration with you know what? Why am I being so coy? It is a video. The video that I plan on getting out at the end of February is a video on Buddhism, and it is a video in collaboration with Religion for Breakfast. There you go. So that's basically it. All right. Move forward with that.
This has all melded into a sort of spidey sense for what would make a good Step Back video. Hopefully this spidey sense will get sharper over time, and my channel will have more hits than misses.
Thanks everyone for the questions. The next video will be underway ASAP. In the meantime, be sure to send along any questions you want answered down below. I just passed 5,000 subscribers, and my life has been crazy. I owe it all to you guys who have been far better to me than I deserve. If you want to see more PowerPoint creations, subscribe to Step Back.
Oh man, oh yeah, so Religion for Breakfast is such a cool guy. Yeah, at the last VidCon, we basically hung out for a good chunk of it. He's really fun. We've been like channel buddies, like on a few of my videos that I did, like I think on my Holy Prep Use video, and also on my my Holy Prep Use video, and also my Gnosticism video. He helped me a lot with the research on those, and I think after that he helped. Like he's been helping me with videos, so now that we're gonna do an actual collaboration together, and it's pretty fun. All right, next one on the list is, this is one that probably a lot of you know. This is a pretty popular video of mine. So the atomic bomb of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, was it justified? I think this is like not the first, but definitely one of the first videos that I got like blatantly accused of being based, being just, you don't care about facts, you just use your liberal values of don't nuke people. Like your hardcore left-wing values of not killing hundreds of thousands of people indiscriminately with weapons that have never been tested on humans before. You know, that kind of thing.
Hey folks, in August of 1945, we as a species entered a new age. In many ways, we achieved technological miracles orders of magnitude greater than our ancestors could ever imagine. We are also now living in the only period in our species' history.
Oh man, okay, that's probably why I got accused, because that is that's a fun graphic. And also, I love my Simpsons reference. I forgot about that.
Where it is actually possible.
Oh dear God, no.
That we could destroy all life on Earth by our own hands. On August 6th, the United States used an atomic weapon on the Japanese city of Hiroshima, killing tens of thousands. And just 3 days later, they used another on Nagasaki, adding thousands to the death toll. From the moment those bombs were detonated, historians, ethicists, and many others have debated, was it justified?
I feel like I was very fair in this video. I set it up as a debate. Like, most people don't set it up as a debate at all. They're just like, yep, it was good, don't worry about it. But I actually, like, raised the ethical question, which I feel like was a good thing to do. I feel no guilt about making this video.
Throughout 1945, the Allied forces of the war were preparing for a bloody and costly invasion of mainland Japan. Through firebombing campaigns, the U.S. demolished entire cities, which were made primarily of wood. Over in Europe, the Germans were surrendering and ending the Second World War's European front. In response, the Americans insisted Japan also unconditionally surrender. The Japanese refused, and the war in the Pacific continued.
All right, now here is a reference that, as history nerds, I imagine a few of you have experienced this horrible. So like, I was trying to convey the feeling that like the war was going on way too long and things were really starting to suck. This is not Risk. This is Axis and Allies, the board game, the World War II board game that is notorious for taking forever to set up, but also that the game just never goddamn ends. Like, it just takes forever. And by the time you're at turn 6 in like an Axis and Allies game, you are like several hours in. Like, you are like already like, fuck this game. I'm so done with this game. And so I was trying to make the reference. I don't know. Is Axis and Allies still a thing that people play? It was, when I was an undergrad, I had a friend who really, really, really liked Axis and Allies. And so I've probably played like a dozen. I probably played this game a dozen times. And him and I, we would have to organize an entire party, and it would go into like 4 a.m. to play this. And yeah, turn 6, you know that the game is dragging on.
In July of 1945, the secret American nuclear program, known as the Manhattan Project, detonated the first successful
I reference Watchmen a lot in these in these videos, I noticed.
atomic explosion over New Mexico. Soon they began retrofitting a Boeing B-29 to deliver these new weapons. On August 6th, the first bomb, nicknamed Little Boy, was detonated over the city of Hiroshima, causing unimaginable destruction. U.S. President Harry Truman demanded a surrender, telling the Japanese to, quote, expect a rain of ruin from the air, the like of which has never been seen on this earth. When they hadn't surrendered after 3 short days, a second bomb, nicknamed Fat Man, was dropped over the city of Nagasaki. Those 2 bombs together killed between 90 and 146,000 people. Some literally disintegrated instantly, their shadows permanently burned into concrete. Many who survived the attacks carried heavy burns, developed radiation sickness, and later cancer. On August 8th, the Soviet Union joined the fight against Japan, and on the 15th, Japan's emperor announced their surrender. To quote the emperor, "The enemy has begun to employ a new and most cruel bomb, the power of which to do damage is, indeed, incalculable, taking the toll of many innocent lives. Should we continue to fight, it would not only result in an ultimate collapse and obliteration of the Japanese nation, but also it would lead to the total extinction of human civilization." Those who justify the use of the atomic bombs rely on a number of key arguments. The main one being that dropping these bombs would result in less American and Japanese.
You like the touch of folding crayons, the reading the story in middle school. Oh yeah. For anyone who doesn't remember that, in Nagasaki, or no, in Hiroshima, there was this story about a little girl who was who was dying of radiation poisoning, and this is back when when aspirin came in like powder form and not in tablets, so they ended up with a lot of these wrappers for aspirin, and this girl who had, who was dying of radiation sickness, basically folded a whole bunch of paper cranes, like origami paper cranes, with these wrappers until basically she died. And a whole bunch of other people joined in, and it became like a kind of symbol of like, we will recover, we will move on from this. And now I think every year in Hiroshima, the people who go there, there's like a event where they make a whole bunch of paper cranes. And that's why I put that in there, because I think that's a pretty poignant story. I feel like this is like my attempt to like elicit emotions about how horrible these attacks were.
Deaths than an Allied land invasion. The U.S. had a plan called Operation Downfall, but they anticipated a heavy cost to taking the Japanese mainland. Their estimates ranged from 250,000 to 1 million dead. They expected such high casualties because other major battles against the Japanese on Pacific Islands, such as Iwo Jima, came at a huge cost. Japanese troops were known to fight to the death, or committed ritual suicide rather than be taken prisoner. This dark math would have desensitized the Allies to the loss of life in the use of atomic bombs.
I think I probably would have been a little less both sidesy on this one if I had made this again. Because like those numbers, like those are things that a lot of people use as excuses, but a lot of those numbers have been getting smaller and smaller over the years. And the more times we make estimates on this, the more it's like actually they just really wanted to use the bomb.
Choosing to use a nuclear bomb over a bloody land battle.
Oh yeah, this is like a whole joke that we had for a while where I was making constant references to having a plan to either kill in one way or another in some sort of cartoonish fashion Will Fox, who runs the channel The Exploration. It was just a joke that I was doing in a bunch of my videos, more to like to I don't know, he thought it was funny, so I just kept doing it.
Represents the darkest solution to a real-life trolley problem
that anyone had ever proposed.
Well, thank you for the two British pounds, Bernie Sanders. Keep up the good work. Proud of you. Hashtag Bernie 2020. Well, if it is indeed British money from the Senator of Vermont, thank you. Thank you, whoever you are. Thank you, Senator, for all of your hard work. I wish you well when you run for president. I would really like people to vote for you to do that. All right. But thank you. I appreciate the £2.
Supporters also believe that using the bomb saved lives by shortening the war. Between 1 and 200,000 people in China had already died fighting the Japanese. Asian countries reported tens of thousands of dead per month. In fact, 350,000 had died in incendiary bombing raids of Japanese cities. In short, a lot of people were dying really fast. Supporters also point out that Japan had mobilized 90% of its economy to the war effort, and so were radically prepared for invasion. They were allegedly training militias to defend against an attack. Hiroshima and Nagasaki were hubs of military construction, and the conversion of civilian infrastructure to war was the U.S.'s justification for...
I got a comment on this video saying that they basically... they got a lot of laughs from... They played it for a classroom, and a lot of the students joked about this joke in particular that they got fairly huffy with me about.
For choosing to bomb civilian targets. Other historians point to Japan's, quote, warrior culture as a reason that there needed to be a drastic motion to push them to surrender.
That Korean there is GG.
In spite of the arguments in favor of bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki, many others have criticized this use of weapons of mass destruction against Japan. The Assistant Secretary of State at the time thought that naval blockades and traditional bombardment would force Japan into surrendering. There were signs that Japan was already looking for a way to get out of the war.
Pokemon reference, yay!
Pleading to the Allied powers at various times. And so, the Secretary of State urged...
Holy moly, look, I don't think I've ever done that much work for a graphic before or since. I was really on a... Oh, because it's Japan. I was really on a Pokemon kick in this one, I guess.
Urged President Truman.
And also, yeah... Intimidate 10 out of 6 type fighting. Okay. The number, so if I remember correctly, the health bar is the population of America at this point. And then yeah, oh man, there's a lot of there's a lot in there.
To warn Japan about the bomb first, which could potentially make them surrender on intimidation alone. Commanders such as Chester Nimitz, William Halsey Jr., and Curtis LeMay did not see it
oh man, look at all those
as militarily necessary. Even some who supported the bombing of Hiroshima would argue that Nagasaki was not necessary. In fact, some historians, such as Tsuyoshi Hasegawa, suggested that the surrender of Japan was actually due more to the Soviet Union joining the war than the bombings. Another
was that like an Irish car bomb or something? I don't know. There's my comic book guy.
Argument by those that criticize the bombings is that they were, quite simply, a war crime, a crime against humanity, or state terrorism. Eugene Wigner, Leo C.
There's my high-minded criticism of the Big Bang Theory, calling it a crime against humanity.
Zard and Albert Einstein wrote a letter to Franklin Roosevelt arguing just that. Here's a snippet. Let me say only this much to the moral issue involved. Suppose Germany had developed 2 bombs before we had any bombs. And suppose Germany had dropped 1 bomb, say on Rochester, and the other on Buffalo. And then, having run out of bombs, she would have lost the war. Can anyone doubt that we would then have defined the dropping of atomic bombs?
I really wanted to rip on the Big Bang Theory in this video for some reason, I guess. Eric Dubé is a Hiroshima and Nagasaki director. Oh.
On cities as a war crime, and that we would have sentenced the Germans who were guilty of this crime to death at Nuremberg and hanged them. The Federal Council of Churches called it an irresponsible use of a terrible weapon, and some called it the further dehumanization of the Japanese people, motivated by racial hatred. Some claim that the bomb's use to push Japan to surrender was intended to create a feeling of awe within the Japanese people. But historians like Michael Walzner have stripped away the euphemistic language and called it flat-out terrorism, or state terrorism, defined as the targeting of innocents for a political goal. Many academics have supported this notion, including one of my favorite historians, Howard Zinn. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki are definitely the definition of moral ambiguity.
See, like, I can't stop making Watchmen references, I guess. I don't know why.
However, I think these events show us the real value in history. How we think through these events speaks a lot to how we approach the problems of today, and how we see these types of decisions. I think the ethics of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki serve as a warning to us. And while we might not have an answer as to whether they were justified, we gain a lot by just having the discussion. I would urge you all to write some of your thoughts you have about this dilemma down below, and please be respectful to others. If you're interested in how a nuclear bomb works, my buddy over at Tell Me Why put together a great scientific...
Oh yeah, Tell Me Why. That was a YouTube channel that asked me to voice over a few of their videos. It really helped out in some of the early days. I remember that. Cool stuff. All right, so that was, I mean, I had done dark topics before, but that was kind of one of my darker ones, and yeah, I think I'm still super proud of that. I mean, I would have, if I could remake that today, I definitely would do it with a lot more quality, but I still think, wow, that's pretty, the content, the script of that is very good. All right. Speaking of videos that are less good, let's move on to my next one, which was about Iceland. Because I had, at that point, a really, one of the first, like, Step Back fans who, like, commented on every video and was around a lot during this time was from Iceland, and I thought I'd make a video for him. I haven't seen him in a while, though.
Iceland, the home of Bjork, volcanoes, and EVE Online. The country has this darling reputation of being adorable and just a little bit weird. Today, we're going to talk about a few strange facts about this peculiar island nation.
Have you seen Knowing Better's Japan video? No, I have not.
It seems that Scandinavians got onto the social democracy train pretty early. Iceland is the oldest democracy, founded in the year 930 AD. There is some evidence that wayward Celtic monks were the first to find this frozen island, but the real settlers came when Garthur Svarsson
Oh boy, here we go.
Landed from Sweden in 870. He left, but one of his buddies stayed behind with a couple slaves. His name was Natsfari, and those three were the first...
This is a reference to a very old... it's funny, I drew these for this video, and this is from... this is a reference to a Blizzard Entertainment game called Lost Vikings that came out in the 90s. But on top of that, I have stolen so many assets from these drawings I did here and have shown up in future videos. Mostly because I really like the sword I drew for this.
Settlers to live on the island. Back then, the island was about 25% in forest, but today it is about 0. Today the island is home to about 330,000 people, and its isolation has led to a few interesting cultural quirks. The first thing to mention is that Icelanders to this day do not have surnames. They don't say Mr. This or Miss That, but call everyone by their first names. The phone book even lists people by their first name. They have a second name to differentiate each other, but in the Nordic tradition, they go by their father's name and add either daughter or son to the end. Speaking of Nordic tradition, the Icelanders speak a preposterously old form of Nordic, so much so that they are able to read texts that are over 1,000 years old.
So I found out that, interesting quirk about that, so the Icelanders can read, like, ancient Norse. German speakers can read
with some training. It's not as easy as Icelanders, but Germans can read Old English a lot easier than English people can.
The letter thorn, which was common in Old Nordic
There you go. There you guys can get your CK2 reference in there.
languages and Old English, is currently only present in Icelandic. Note, in Old English, this letter, called thorn, used to make the TH sound, and we would be able to spell the word the as such. Sometimes the thorn can become a Y, and that's where the ye old something or other comes from. Back to Iceland. Their traditional Viking style has resulted in a few oddities as well. A majority of Icelanders actually believe in elves, which comes from Norse mythology. Anyone with a name that hasn't been used before on the island must be approved by a committee. 1 in 10 people write a book in their lives. And beer was outlawed until 1989. Immigration is extremely difficult to near impossible, and so the island is one of the most genetically similar countries on Earth. So much so that they had to develop an app to ensure the person you're on a date with isn't related to you.
So a couple things. I have heard... Oh, sorry about that. I have heard that that's... a couple of those things are less than fully accurate. Alright, so the whole thing about this app turned out it was like a joke, like a prank. And the other thing was... What's the other thing that was like slightly inaccurate? Oh, whatever. I'll move on.
In spite of those traditions,
Oh, it was the thing about elves. Apparently, it's not a fact that most Icelanders believe in elves.
Iceland is also particularly modern. Internet connectivity is at near 98% adoption. Crime is very low, and violent crime nearly non-existent. In 2013, they had a national mourning for the first police officer to die in a shooting.
Oh yeah, I've gotten a lot of comments about this one, which is that I got that wrong, and the day of mourning was for the first time a police officer ever shot somebody.
Ever. Parents will leave their babies outside of cafes to nap in the fresh air. Lastly, their parliament has 3 seats given to the internet freedom advocates, the Pirate Party. Last thing I want to mention is just how strange the island is geographically. It is extremely volcanic, with an average eruption about every 4 years, and no shortage of hot springs to bathe in. The interior is an uninhabitable highland of sand, mountains, and lava fields. The capital city of Reykjavik contains 60% of the entire population, and lastly, it is tundra or subarctic, so bring a sweater. It's not called Iceland for nothing. I became obsessed with going to this island nation after doing the research for this video. Few other countries seem to have such an intimate connection with their ancestors 1,000 years ago. Their culture is like a time capsule of what Norse were like at the time of peak Norseness. So please, let me know anything.
Game of Thrones, yogurt that is cheese, no McDonald's, and 85% renewable energy.
Cool and strange about it down in the comments. If you ever go yourself, be sure to try the raw puffin heart. I hear it's great with Coca-Cola, which they're also crazy about. If you want to promote history education online, be sure to share this and like this video. And, of course, subscribe for more Step Back.
It is indeed possible to make your own weapon of mass destruction, as long as you find a few pounds of...
Let's dig in.
So there you go. That was my Iceland video. Man, I forgot about that. I haven't seen that video, and I haven't seen that video probably since 2016, so it was pretty fun to watch that. Iceland. Fun stuff. How's everyone doing in the chat? It seems like a little quiet. Is everyone still having fun? Hey. How many of y'all are in here? Let me just take a look-a-loo real quick. There's 47 of you. All right, we're good. Yeah, so that's my old Iceland video. That was pretty fun. Yeah, so this is like taking us into like the summer of 2016. I think, yeah, August 2016. So we're getting more close to the present. Does Iceland have kind prisons? I have no idea, honestly. It's a good question. But if it's anything like other Scandinavian prisons, they're amongst about as humane as prisons can get, but just still pretty not humane. Let's talk. All right, the next one is another Q&A video. So let's look at that, and then we have to debate over whether I should play the video about the time I announced a Patreon.
Hey, folks. When I reached out for my Q&A videos, many of you asked me questions about history.
Yes, abolish all prisons. Also, this is a reference to No Man's Sky, which came out in the summer of 2016.
I decided to mine a few for regular video topics, but here are some quick answers to a few of the other historical questions. Tamana Zaman asks if it's true that William Shakespeare never existed. As far as the consensus of most people who study the Bard, Tamana, you can be safely assured he was a real person. More than enough contemporary documents from different sources confirm his existence. If it is a hoax, it would be one of the most sophisticated ever pulled off. Some have accused him of not being the author of many of his famous works as far back as the 19th century. Over 80 other people have been suspected of being the true author of Shakespeare's works. Most famous is Sir Francis Bacon.
Man, Sir Francis Bacon looks like somebody. I don't know who. He reminds me of like some weird celebrity.
The case historians make is that there are no contemporary accusations that Shakespeare did not write the plays, and all copies identify him as the author. The coolest thing, though, that they used to ID him was something called a stylistic study. People write in unique styles, like a fingerprint, and Shakespeare's words choice and sentence structure hints to a profile.
I think my words choice in that was kind of suspect. This stylistic analysis has actually been used in a few other really cool cases. This is something that I had one of my PhD supervisor told me a lot about, which is that it was used actually to find the author of an anonymous book that was written, and some other things like that. And so like it's pretty cool that it's been used.
Completely unique to himself. Josh from Native Lang asks, who was history's most famous historian?
Oh, yeah, this is something. Native Lang, the guy who runs Native Lang, Josh, that's another person who, while we've never done videos together, he has probably given me a lot of, like, really useful advice for running my channel that I probably wouldn't be here without him. But I haven't talked to him in maybe about a year or two, but I owe a lot to Native Lang for kind of figuring out things.
Well, Josh, by the way, guys, if you like what I do here, but are also into linguistics, Josh runs Native Lang, an amazing animated linguistics channel. Check out his Great Moments in the History of Writing, or Thoth's Pill, as it's actually called, series, for a great 47 minutes of educational stuff. Now to his question. I think that many historians, maybe not all, but many, would say Herodotus. His book, The Histories, is considered by many to be the West's first history book. It's a Greek record of the world of Greece, North Africa, and the Middle East in around 440 BCE. It's the only...
There's a 300 reference.
...in-depth record we have of the rise of the Achaemenid Persian Empire, and the famous wars they had with Greece. By today's standard, the book was largely pulled from his butt, hearsay, and a hefty dose of propaganda, but it sets a standard in chronicling the events of people just beyond the mythical. Stefan Atli Thorvaldsson.
That, by the way, is the person who... Stefan Atli Thorvaldsson is like... That's the guy who commented on a whole bunch of my videos, who's from Iceland, who I made the Iceland video for.
Asks a couple questions. One was, what was the first country? Well, this is a difficult question, surprisingly. Countries are very young or very old, depending on your definition. You might argue that it was the first unnamed city. Some say this even predates agriculture, but most do not. Most historians put this somewhere in the Neolithic age. If it's the first state, well, people argue that the development of the modern state was a process of moving from allegiance to particular sovereigns to the creation of an intangible political entity. This could be as early as the first Italian...
Man, this is my Doge joke. I'm not sure if anyone got this, but I think I'm pretty happy with it.
In city-states, or as late as the early...
But it does show how outdated the memes already are.
Early modern period in Europe. We could also just go with the simple answer, when Europeans decided what a state was going to be at the Treaty of Westphalia in 1648. It ended decades of bloody war in Europe by stating that all states held the right to national self-determination. They described this as territorial sovereignty, and without foreign agents at the domestic level. Stefan's second question was, why does Quebec speak French? You hear a little about this in the video I did on Soliloquy's channel here, but the TLDW version is that the French were the first Europeans to colonize Quebec. It wasn't until the 7 Years' War, or French and Indian War for you Americans, that modern Quebec would fall into the hands of the British. The Quebecois were largely poor and lived in a semi-feudal life, so they didn't often assimilate or move around until later in the 19th century. Today, French as a language is a key part of the French Quebecois identity, and they make great efforts to preserve it in order to ensure their identity survives. This includes a special government organization called the Office Québécois de la Langue Française, or the OQLF, that sometimes gets itself in a bit of trouble for its crackdowns. One of the more recent ones is Pastagate, where they gave a stern warning to an Italian restaurant for having the word pasta on the menu. That's enough for now. Thanks for the questions, and if you want me to answer something about myself, the channel, or history, just comment down below. And of course, if you haven't, subscribed to find out when I make my next episode of Step Back.
Subscribe. It feels so good. Oh man, yeah. Definitely Non-Compete is a great channel for 25580 to check out if he hasn't checked it out already. Man, that was fun. That's I think that's like the end of my Q&A series. I see we're getting into. So when I launched Patreon, which is the next video, and let me know if you guys want to watch my first Patreon appeal from like back in 2016. But that was I think the video the Patreon video is the last video I made in PowerPoint, and then I switched. I took a few weeks off, and I switched to the Adobe suite, and I started learning from there. So, yeah, let me know if you guys want to watch the Patreon video or not. And then we've got an unlisted video for patrons who. The thank you thing. I won't show you guys that because you have to become a patron to see that. I don't even know if we show that to patrons anymore. If we do, that's funny. All right, let's do this. So let's watch. This is my first when I first got Patreon in 2016, and I was so nervous about it.
Hey folks, history has had a communication problem. I think we can all agree that the History Channel, even before it was Pawn Stars, Ice Road Truckers, Ancient Aliens, and Ghost Hunters, was one endless World War II documentary after another. TV and high school classes have convinced people that history is boring or unimportant, and this has had an impact. History enrollment in universities is down, year on year, and often the degree is considered useless, despite all the skills it teaches like critical thinking, writing, and clear communication. Those are some of the most desired skills for new employees. Step Back was created to show that history is something amazing. It is much more than just the lives of kings and famous battles. I wanted to show the world that learning history can make you a better person, and is a part of a well-rounded education. I began in September of 2015 to set a new standard in history content online. And you guys responded. Step Back has been a huge success, with over 9,000.
There you go. Over 9,000. I had to get that in.
Of you watching videos about the subjects everyone told me would be too boring for YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, it has become an amazing place for creators to make great content that has really revolutionized our relationship with education. SciShow is so widespread that it's on bus ads. And because of channels like that, excitement about science is really at an all-time high. At Step Back, I want to do for history what so many great YouTubers have done for science. This is where you can help to make this dream come true. I'm launching a campaign on the crowdfunding site Patreon to improve and expand Step Back. I love what I'm doing and would keep making videos even if I worked at a bank. But
oh boy. Might have to eat those words depending on I don't know.
With your help, I can make more and better content to help make history education better in classrooms and for lifelong learners. Patreon is a voluntary subscription service where you can support the channel with as little as $1 a month. These Patreon contributions would allow me to dedicate more time.
+1 mouse of drawing. Damn, like, how is this is like my second reference to D&D that I think I've done on this channel, and this is before I even started playing. This is like what, fall of 2016? So this is like a year before I'd start playing D&D. So I don't know where I was getting the inspiration for that from.
Time and effort into making this channel even better. Also, don't worry, Step Back will always be free forever, and if you can't or don't want to make a contribution, I completely understand. Your contributions will assist in helping fund better software and equipment to make videos look and sound better than I can with my current tools. It will allow me to dedicate more time to making each video amazing, and put more effort into promoting history education wherever I can get it. You're funding better history content for everyone. Of course, there are also some goodies in it for you if you choose to help me in this endeavor too. People who donate as little as $1 a month will get behind-the-scenes access to the show, book recommendations, and a weekly vlog with my non-animated face where I talk about developments in the field, the creation of videos, and whatever sweet goodies I think I can put in there.
I did a lot of that stuff for a while, and then nobody cared, so I stopped. I used to do book reviews, and I used to do a weekly vlog, but just nobody was watching it, so I just stopped doing it.
As the contributions go up, so do the rewards. Those that donate $2 a month get access to a monthly Google Hangout about history, making the channel run, and general craziness of grad school life, along with their access to the feed. $3 a month gets you all that plus a wallpaper from each new video.
These have all been revamped, so it's not a thing anymore. Sorry, friends.
The rewards get pretty fun if you choose to help more. This could be voting on topics for future videos, getting a custom animated picture of you in my Step Back style.
That's still a thing. You can still get that.
For your profile picture, signed and numbered prints of stills from videos.
That's still a thing, and I have actually sent those out on a few occasions. There were some times I got some really, really generous patrons who signed up for a high enough number that I was sending them prints.
And there's even one where I take you out for dinner if I come to a meetup near you. If you want to help make history education online better for everyone, and something people value again, please consider going to Patreon and making it happen.
Not bad. Big, if true. Alright, so the next video, so that was my first Patreon thing, so I just got Patreon. Oops, probably shouldn't open new tabs. So I just gotten Patreon. That was a big new thing. Very quickly after I got my Patreon thing, after I got my new Patreon thing, I moved on to the Adobe suite because I got a lot of amazing patrons who came out and helped. So then I made a video collaboration with Art Explains, where I made a video on the Art Explains channel and he made a video on my channel, and that's what we're going to watch next. Then after that, we're going to I'll answer the rest of your questions before we close down the stream, and when we come back next time we do this, we're going to start with the post Patreon like era, you know, where I'm using like Adobe and everything changes. The channel really goes through a huge change between these two things. But let's watch the Xander video for next. It's on organ donation.
Hey folks, not to be an alarmist or anything, but there just might be something in your wallet right now that is a matter of life or death. Not for you, but for several strangers. In the United States, for example, your driver's license either does or does not have a tiny little dot on it that says donor. It's small and we spend very little time thinking about it. But we really ought to, because organ transplantation is an underappreciated modern miracle that we are lucky to have in comparison to the billions of humans who previously didn't. So let's take a step back through history and explore how things were in order to get an appreciation for what's possible today, such as the first full human head transplant scheduled to take place next year. But let's not
I don't know
get
if that ever
ahead
actually
of
happened.
ourselves. For millions of years, the barriers preventing successful organ transplantation in the human species were numerous and seemingly insurmountable. If one of your major organs stopped functioning, well, so did you. Now the biggest obstacle to fixing whatever breaks is actually the paperwork and the difficulties concerning organ donation. These days, if you ever hear your doctor spout the words major surgery and trial and error in the same sentence, I recommend you get a second opinion. But the internal organs were an impenetrable mystery to the human race for most of our history. They could not examine living organs directly, and even examining non-living bodies was difficult or taboo. Things that we take for granted on medical posters in the classroom today would have been shocking to our ancestors. For example, did you know that the average human spends his entire life within a few meters of a spooky skeleton?
Oh man, that's an old joke. Yeah, a real craniectomy. Yeah, the idea, I don't think it ever actually happened because there was like a lot of ethical issues. But like, there's a person an Italian doctor who thought that they could make a head transplant work by basically lowering the temperature of the head enough that they could transplant somebody's head onto another person's body and somehow have that work. They weren't planning on connecting the nerves. So the idea is this person would be a paraplegic, but they would be like able to, like they would have a whole body of organs to take care of their head. But I don't think it ever happened. Or if it did happen, it wasn't successful, because I imagine if it was, it would have made the news.
Think about it. Okay, now stop thinking about it. But over time, ancient people learned from observing what happened after someone was wounded. Galen, a celebrated ancient doctor, learned things from working with wounded gladiators, such as, hey, we should probably be keeping these intestine things on the inside. He also got some things wrong. He thought that blood was created in the liver and needed regular purging from the body through bloodletting, which is not at all how blood is supposed to work. The brain, too, started off playing a mysterious role. The ancient Egyptians from around 5,000 years ago used a series of syllables to refer to the brain that roughly translates to skull offal, offal being defined as waste material. They originally considered it a sort of gross skull stuffing that functioned as a snot funnel. Hey, what a coincidence! Snot funnel was my band's name in high school. But when people who got whacked in the head developed serious problems, they took a closer look. Of course, the ancient Egyptians never gained a full appreciation for the brain, and preferred to remove it during mummification in order to keep the head dry and prevent additional decomposition. They didn't see this as a problem because they believed that the heart contained the...
You very different in this video. That's because this isn't me. This is actually my friend Xander, who runs the channel Art Explains. For this, we did a collaboration where I made a video for his channel, which is actually the first video I ever made in After Effects. And then he made a video for my channel, and the idea behind it was he was going to make a step back video in a step back style, and I was going to make a Art Explains video in Art Explains style. Yeah, so if you go to Art Explains and you look back to his records to September of 2016, you can find a hidden step back video that isn't on the channel.
Important stuff like memory. Ancient Egypt was an interesting time to be alive. Teeth, serving an important and obvious function, were probably the first body part to ever be replaced. Dental work in general has been attempted for at least 15,000 years, but some of the most interesting replacement evidence comes from South America, where indigenous peoples replaced lost teeth with seashells around the years 600 to 800 CE. Amazingly, the bone in the surrounding tooth socket grew in to meet the seashell, creating a successful permanent implant. In France, around the time Les Miserables takes place, dentists began offering the service of taking teeth from one mouth hole belonging to a poor or dead person and transplanting them to a mouth hole of a richer, not dead person. Teeth quickly became goods to be sold. As author David Hamilton notes, scavengers who visited the battlefields of Europe, notably after the Battle of Waterloo, removed teeth from the huge number of dead soldiers. However, there was a catch. Certain infectious diseases, most notably syphilis, could come with the tooth, which would eventually cause the rich recipient's face to fall apart. Ah, the price of vanity. But of course, teeth aren't organs and usually functioned as inert implants. If we want to talk about human transplants, we need to start with the largest organ, the skin. Surprisingly, skin transplantation has a long history, probably beginning in the 6th century BCE or earlier in ancient India. A medical text from that time, called the Sushruta Samhita, describes a form of plastic surgery of the nose, or a rhinoplasty, that required rotating a flap of skin from the cheek or forehead onto the nose while leaving the base attached to keep it supplied by the original blood vessels. Once the graft takes hold, it is severed and sculpted into a new nose. This was used to replace the noses of people who lost them in sword fights, for example. At the time, plastic surgery was a very respectable profession, but eventually the upper tiers of the caste system began to reject it because it both required manual work and the touching of another's body. And so, these highly skilled doctors slowly lost their social status, and while the practice never died out completely, by the time Europeans learned of these methods nearly 2,000 years later, the operations were being performed by artisan surgeons associated with the lowly trades of potter and brickmaker. Knowledge of this ancient method was eventually carried to Italy, where after a period of experimentation by a father-son team called the Brancas, a brilliant surgeon named Tagliacozzi improved the method by allowing a skin flap from the upper arm to be used, resulting in less facial scarring. This meant that patients had to have their arms strapped to their faces for some number of weeks. Strangely enough, that's the same technique used by our drummer during our snot funnel days. Tagliacozzi wrote down and illustrated his revolutionary methods in a book, which was basically ignored for 200 years because the public got confused and spread false rumors about them. For example, people spoke of transplanting a free graft nose from one human to another. The claim was that slaves were having their noses cut off and applied to their masters' faces, but when the slave eventually died, the grafted nose would die too. This did not work and did not happen, as Tagliacozzi made clear in his book. But the rumors destroyed the credibility of the actual procedures. Today, we know that the immune system was responsible for making these person-to-person grafts, called allografts, impossible at the time. There is an interesting exception to this immune system rule involving the cornea, or the thin outside tissue layer of the eye. Because it exists in relative isolation from the bloodstream, where the immune system does most of its work from, a cornea allograft has a high success rate. In fact, in 1837, a surgeon reported a successful corneal transplantation between two gazelles. Unfortunately, this success would not be repeated in humans until 1906. Excluding the cornea, a typical skin allograft from one human to another fails slowly, not immediately. It is rejected after about 1 or 2 weeks under a normal immune system. But surgeons in the 17 and 1800s had terrible follow-up with their patients. And so after slapping the donor skin on and kicking the patient out the door, they often reported these grafts as successful, when they totally weren't. And in the instance when a patient returned claiming that the graft had failed, the surgeon would sometimes blame the patient for infecting the wound during the changing of the bandages, and definitely not the procedure itself. Then, things took a strange shift in the late 1800s.
Sorry if I'm not saying a whole lot. I had nothing to do with the creation of this video, so... But I am happy to promote Xander and the Art Explains channel as much as I can, so hope you're enjoying it.
1800s, when surgical focus moved from skin to glands. The thyroid, pancreas, adrenal, sex, and other glands involuntarily participated in possibly the most bizarre chapter of early transplantation. Because, with very little regard to actual science, surgeons began implanting slices of these glands under patients' skin. Why? Because it paid very well. For one example, men with problems in the bedroom would pay hefty sums for various monkey glands, including I think you can guess, to be inserted into them. This did not work, but the advertising of this process was successful, with men claiming to have better stamina after the surgery. Surgeons didn't know that the grafted tissue didn't survive because they implanted it so deep that they never checked, and also some of them didn't really care as long as they got paid. Medical ethics was barely a thing at the time. Most famously, the Kansas-based doctor and later politician...
Why do some videos have you and others animation? How do you choose? Early on in my channel, I was all animation. Then I moved to adding camera stuff to my videos when I got my camera that's just over there. I got the camera through a grant in the fall of 2017. I applied for the Vlogbrothers grant, and the Vlogbrothers gave me money to buy a camera,
and I had decided that I wanted to incorporate it more and more ever since. I've gone back and forth over why I use one over the other, but now I try to make myself... I try to switch between depending upon what I need to do. Because, like, some people have a school of thought where they actually want to use the camera as little as possible. Basically, like, between the two, I would say, like, the two people I asked for advice on this were Peter Coffin and Dan Olson. Peter Coffin's advice was to use the camera as little as possible because voiceover and graphics are just more interesting to people. And then Dan Olson said that if you're trying to teach and you're trying to keep people's attention, that speaking in front of a camera is better because they basically, like, seeing somebody say something makes it easier for you to retain the information and to feel more of a personal connection with the creator. And also, part of YouTube success is about developing a relationship with the parasocial relationship with the creator, which, you know, I don't want to push in problematic directions, but you need to associate the channel with a person. And doing videos on camera helps with that. You now know my face. You know what I look like. That makes me more associated with a person than, like, say, like, I don't know, like Sean, for example, who breaks all the rules and is somehow successful, which is, you know, just a testament to how good his work is.
John Brinkley made around $12 million off of these surgeries in the 1920s and 30s, at least partially while the Great Depression was happening. Later, after barely failing to get elected as the governor of Kansas because of a voting technicality, it was widely revealed that he had bought his diploma and had no actual medical training. As you have undoubtedly gathered at this point...
Oh, the reason... that's the reason why Dan Olson switched from using a puppet to using his face, and it has to do with sort of the semiotics of YouTube as, like, a platform, and that on YouTube, people are more expecting to see somebody's face in a video than they are to see, like, a cartoon. Not to mention, also, to add on to that, that seeing, that filming and showing my face cuts down significantly on the amount of time I spend in post-production, because animation takes a lot of time, and good animation takes a ton of time.
The history of organ transplantation was, at times, utter madness. The scientific and social barriers were so great that it has been only an extremely recent development that organ transplantation has become the relatively routine procedure that it is today. But there is still one more major barrier in the way of saving the lives of the people who die every day from organ failure, and that, simply put, is paperwork. In 2012, a survey released by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services revealed that 95% of respondents were in favor of organ donation. And yet, on the same survey, only 62% of respondents said that they had granted permission to donate their own organs. This disconnect between people believing that donating is a good idea and yet not giving permission to donate their own organs leads to over 8,000 people dying in the United States every year because they can't get an organ donor in time, despite public support for the practice. Many approaches have been, well, approached in order to solve this dilemma. For example, because 80% of the waiting transplant patients in the United States are looking for a kidney, black market kidney practices are on the rise. Follow the link in the description to a Vice documentary on this subject that follows a journalist who decides to try buying a kidney from Bangladesh and discovers a town full of poor people who have sold off one kidney each. Not all recent news is depressing, though. Scientists have been having some recent successes in growing human organs either in the lab or inside of animals, which may someday eliminate the need for human donors altogether. For example, a line of genetically engineered pigs have been developed with corneas that lack specific proteins in them that usually trigger the human immune system, and so they will hopefully work as viable transplants. And of course, advancements in the world of artificial organs, especially hearts, are incredible. A dear friend of mine, Charles Winthrop, describes how his heart is monitored wirelessly from a control center. They can call him up on his cell phone if there is a problem and shock his heart back into rhythm wherever he happens to be.
And they have called me before and said, okay, we need you to lay down on the floor wherever you're at right now. It's happened about twice that I've been in the grocery store, and they'll say, okay, what's happening is we have to make an adjustment to stop you from going into cardiac arrest.
Oh, wow.
Because the pacemaker can identify it's coming if we stop it now.
Yeah, this is still... Yeah, remember when you could say not all news is depressing? Yeah, this is definitely a... what's it called? A pre-November 2016 video.
Now he won't have a heart attack. They warned me when they put it in. They said occasionally when you'll have to have an adjustment made, you'll feel this. It'll feel like a minor electrical shock inside your chest. Make sure no one is touching you when it happens.
And more good news, so many people are in favor of organ donation in the 21st century that some countries have enacted presumed consent policies, where if a person doesn't specify whether or not they want to be an organ donor, they automatically are, but can opt out if they disagree with donating. The United States does not have this policy, although more than half of Americans support it, so that could change. Someday we will have figured out some combination of consent laws and technology that will prevent people from falling through the gaps in the transplantation process. But until then, here is what you can do to help, right now. If you live in the United States, follow the link in the description or click on the screen now to go to the Art Explains and Step Back History Organ Donation Registry Sign-Up Drive, which is a website we have set up through the Donate Life America nonprofit organization. There, you'll be able to join the National Donate Life Registry. Even if you already have a donor sticker on your driver's license, it is still...
Oops, no, we don't...
Say for the sake of argument, your...
Oh, no. No, bad.
Hey, folks.
All right, I guess we lost the video. I'll put a link to that in case you guys actually want to register as an organ donor, because it's still up. So, there you go, friends. Alrighty. So, that's a thing. And so, in the story of Step Back, that we're getting to the point where after that video came out, after that video was released, I had Patreon, and from day one, like my first Patreon stretch goal was like $50 a month. And at $50 a month, I was able to get myself a, what's it called? Subscription to the Adobe suite. And I think that my channel changed in a humongous way that point going forward. The next video I make, the first video I make like in this style is my 9/11 an inside job video, which is still one of my most popular videos. And then on top of that, the next video I make after that was the one I did about Aisha, and I think those are like those are still some of the videos I'm the most proud of. So, but yeah, those are the ones we're going to get into the next time we come back to this this retrospective, if you will. So I did get a number of questions while we were going through the videos, so I'm gonna going through those. Thoughts on the Golden One? The Golden One is a sad person. If you are interested, if you look through I have a playlist on my channel page. If you go to the Subscriber Appreciation Day playlist and find the stream that I did with ContraPoints, she and I have a discussion about the Golden One that's pretty good, and I think that you'll get more juice answering that question out of that than... And we also talk about what leftist Golden One would be like, and it was pretty fun. Yeah. David Graeber is writing notes about the whole paperwork keeping people from getting organ transplants. Yeah, David Graeber would have things to say about that. What do you think about Extra History? I liked the series. I thought it was a bit more... focused too much on warfare, but whatever. But out of principle, I don't watch the channel because of all the kind of stuff that James Portnoy has done, and so I try not to support Extra Credits or Extra History at all. Does Thought resent the fact that you and Mexi get to do jobs that actually help people? I don't think so.
I mean, you'd have to ask him, really. I can't speak to his internal... I actually haven't talked to him in a while. I kind of miss him. But... I don't know. He seemed... He I don't know. I can't... not much I can say to that. Are Japan better off for having surrendered? I mean, given the situation, they prevented more nuclear weapons from dropping on their country. Also, they tried to surrender several times before the bombs got dropped. They just kind of, you know, the Americans didn't accept it because they wanted to use the bomb. What happened with James? Well, what happened with James is it came out that, okay, this is like, this probably about a year ago now, little under a year ago. This big tweet thread came out about how, if you remember about a year ago, a lot of the key figures in the extra credits circle started leaving. And it has to do with the fact that James Portnoy was dating a woman who worked at extra credits. And basically, when they broke up, he got extremely vindictive and tried to make her life working at extra credits a living hell. And then when she quit, he like basically made up a bunch of stuff about how she was unable to work with, and like all this kind of like stuff. And she did this really long Twitter thread about how he was basically gaslighting her and trying to like ruin her reputation at the company and like those kinds of things, and that's why she left. I think that she was like his co-host on the like she was his co-host on the like what's it called stuff, the lies part of the history series. But then on top of that, like backlash against that led, I think, to the other James, the guy who now runs like a Let's Play and animation channel, also leaving. And they had to replace the voiceover for extra credits. And so, yeah, I after that, I couldn't bring myself to follow extra credits anymore. Abolish all prisons. What about the minority of people who are predisposed to random violence? It's a very, very small amount of people, and usually those are people who are in need of severe psychiatric therapy. I don't think anyone's against... Well, the thing is, Flim Flambridge, he left before everything all blew up, but I think that the stuff was going down in the company before she like went popular, or before like she went public with everything that was going down. So I imagine they knew something. She was the host of Extra History for Lies and the Australian guy, Ned something. Okay. Yeah, so... Prisons. Yeah, some people have severe psychiatric disorders, especially if people who are psychopathic and such like that. They are a very small minority of people, and for the most part, they can be either rehabilitated, or they can be in a situation in which they are not kept as prisoners, but they are not necessarily in a position where they can, where they have access to hurt others, like some sort of live-in care facility, something like a more high security live-in care facility. But those would be extremely rare situations. And I honestly think that a lot of people who have that sort of like people like Ed Gein and like people like you know, like Jeffrey Dahmer and like people like that, for the most part are made, and they're not born. But even if they are made, I think that there's a lot that can be done to bring them to justice and bring them to, but also find a way to let them live a life that is free for themselves, where they can't hurt others. Isn't Patreon getting worse due to the company growing bigger?
That hasn't happened yet, but I do know what you're referring to. You're referring to Dan Olson's like epic Twitter thread about Patreon and the sort of the culture of the constant need for logarithmic growth. I do think that that is a problem. I hope that it isn't the case for a while, and I hope that if that does happen, that there's an alternative. Like, unfortunately, Patreon isn't the best game in town. It's just the only one. It'd be great if there was a cooperatively owned Patreon alternative that was like a non-profit, but that doesn't exist right now. And judging how, like, Patreon is the reason I can keep doing Step Back, I basically am, like, I don't have much of a choice. I have to keep using it. Should Patreon users unionize? That would be interesting. Is it ethically acceptable to make criminal go into a facility where they have to consent to rehabilitation if they want to get out? That's different. I mean, there's the ethics of preventing them from hurting others. There's no anarchist concepts are about preventing coercion or preventing unjustifiable hierarchies and unjustifiable coercion. I would say that restricting somebody's freedoms for a while to keep them from hurting others is a pretty justified coercion. Just like how you would grab a 2-year-old who wanders into traffic, you would definitely stop somebody like a mass murderer from killing people. Like, that's just that there's no ethical concern there. Is suicide okay? Well, that's a dark one. I mean, that's not a question I can really answer universally. That's something that people have to answer for themselves. I do think that a lot of suicides that happen happen because of as what's called the permanent solution to a temporary problem, and are a sign that somebody's support network fell apart on them and failed them. And sometimes it's not that the support network failed, but it's just that they had basically a moment of kind of some of these dark moments of severe detachment and things like that, and it's really sad when that happens. Though, I am a firm believer in people's right to autonomy over their own bodies. And that means their right to choose whether they want to or they do not want to keep living. That isn't a choice other people can make for somebody. You can argue that they might not be in the right mind in some cases, but also in a lot of cases, and this is the part where we really have to think about, sometimes they are in their right mind, and I don't know what that I don't know what to answer to that. I would probably recommend watching the video from PhilosophyTube about the question. I think it's a lot more nuanced and a lot more well put together than the one than anything that I'd be able to say. Basically, what if murderers frankly refuses to submit to rehabilitation? All right, we kind of covered this already. If you became head of state, either Prime Minister of Canada or President of the USA, what would be the first thing that you would do? Oh boy. Depends on the country. USA, I would probably be Medicare for all right now. I'd have a long laundry list of things I'd want to do, but the United States, getting universal health care right now, is the number one thing that they should be worrying about. So that would be my number one for that. Canada, ooh boy, I would probably also I would probably try to solve the two big problems that we've got, which is, we got a lot of problems. I think the most pressing thing, the first thing that I would do is try to get free stuff, food, supplies, medicine, everything
out to indigenous communities that are suffering. And my first priorities as prime minister would be to fix the very pressing right now systemic problems that face indigenous people in Canada. Get those people who are under boiled water advisories and get them fresh water, get their water systems working again. And also making sure that just by fiat, making sure that people get the things that they need, until we can find out and invest a lot of resources in figuring out how we can make sure that those communities are getting the things they need. Because the way that we treat indigenous people in this country is like the number one most urgent and important problem that needs to be addressed. That and climate change, which, that would be probably number two, those pipelines, they getting torn down. And all of the oil sands and everything like that, they get shut down yesterday. Dan, opinion on Chapo Trap House. Chapo Trap House is a good podcast. It is a very cathartic part of my week to listen to. I pay the Patreon, so I get the 2 episodes a week, and I like it. I don't always agree with them, but most of the time I do. And honestly, in the world we live in, just having somebody who is being funny and talking about the things and, has some of the same beliefs as me is such a rare treat, and I like it so much. Do you think a true crime series based on war criminals, imperialism, and other merchants of death would work? That macabre dark YouTube channel would totally work. Definitely. Yeah. Okay. Got some more questions. All right. Real solidarity can exist between anarchists and communists if the latter takes power because they support a state. I guess, what real solidarity can exist between anarchists and communists if the latter takes power because they support a state? I mean, there's some people who think that, I think in an interview I did with Donnie Gluckstein, the historian, he said that, anarchism, he's a Marxist-Leninist historian, and he's just like, anarchism and the way that anarchists organize things, that would work for, rural situations, and that in urban situations you would need a state. And it's like, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I could definitely see the two coexisting until we, come to situations like communists or socialist governments and anarchists can coexist if it is a democratic society. Capitalist societies and socialist or anarchist societies cannot coexist because capitalism is about the exploitation and destruction of basically all human life on Earth. So that would be difficult. Have you seen The Art of Killing, and what do you think about the ethics of movie violence impact on real violence? I actually haven't seen that. I don't know anything about it. This might be interesting to check out. Why do you think Obama didn't end racism? Well, because racism is a several century long it's a long story of colonization, and capitalism thrives on racism. The reason why a lot of the social inequities that happen between different groups of people happen because capitalism makes more money, and capitalism thrives when there isn't a unified working class to oppose it. And so it is in the interest of furthering the economy to perpetuate sexism, to perpetuate racism, to perpetuate homophobia, because it keeps us from realizing that we all have one enemy, and it's the people who run the economy. And that is not a thing that we have come to terms with yet. And Obama was the first black president, which is a huge milestone and something that should not be underwritten. He was also firm, staunch believer in capitalism, a system that requires the unequal distribution of labor and requires things like racism to keep functioning. And as long as it stays being profitable, no one's going to stop it. Not to mention, Obama took a super soft approach to dealing with race issues until very late in his presidency. Like, he did stuff like the beer summit and stuff like that, which, you know, like, it didn't help anyone. Can you give me $300 to buy the complete Icelandic saga? Yeah, I'm already going to be going into debt this month because I had to buy a new pair of glasses. So you're going to have to ask somebody else to front you the money for that. Any good leftist podcast I should listen to other than Chapo Trap House? Let's take a look. I've got a whole bunch of them. All right, The Dollop. If you're a leftist who's also a fan of history, The Dollop is a pretty good podcast to catch up on. The Vegan Vanguard, which is hosted by Mexi and Marine. That's a pretty good podcast. Not just for vegans. I'm not a vegan. I still think the podcast is great. It doesn't get super preachy. Then, let me check here. Let's see. Chapo. Oh, Eyes Left, which is a anti-imperialist podcast run by two people who are former veterans, which I think is pretty cool. And Deconstructed with Mehdi Hassan. That's a pretty good podcast. If you like Quickstep, you'll really like that, Deconstructed. It's run by The Intercept, and I have my issues with The Intercept, but I think Mehdi Hassan does not seem to fall into the same kinds of traps that Glenn Greenwald does. So I think that Deconstructed's pretty good. And yeah, those are the ones that I would suggest anyway. Should I listen to Chapo? Well, Logan, you should definitely. I definitely think it's worth giving a try. I definitely know it's not for everyone, but if you listen to it and it's your jam, then go for it. Do you have any recommended reading about organizing? Honestly, no. I really wish there was a good book on organizing, but sadly there's not, because we're still trying to figure out what the service economy 21st century way of leftist organization is. And I don't know if it's going to be one thing in every place, and I don't know if there's a true answer at the moment. So we have to, we've got a lot of work to do on that front. And with that, it is 9:57, so I think that it is about time we go to sleep and we have an amazing a week. Thank you guys for coming out. Thursday, I'm going to have my next Quick Step come out. I'm hoping that the week after you will see another Step Back video, Step Back Prime series, and then another one about a week after that. So that's a high price, but here's hoping. Anyways, thank you guys. Have a great night. Have a great week.